Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are both reportedly threatening to quit the FBI over the botched Epstein release, cover-up, whatever you want to call it. Apparently, Dan Bongino refused to come into work today and then threatened to leave unless Pam Bondi was removed. Kash says, if Dan's out, then I'm out. And now you've got this whole big hubbub, and there's a lot of rumors, theories, conspiracies, which we can break into as to what is actually going on. Some still think that this is all part of the plan. It's a grand conspiracy to deceive you, throw Pam Bondi under the bus. Others are saying Trump is using the Epstein blackmail to get his agenda through. We will talk about this and much, much more. We do have a bunch of other stories. Apparently, according to Wired, the videos that they released of the prison were edited, despite them claiming it was a raw release. Now, one of them was modified. One of them was supposedly not. And Wired says we went in, we checked the data, and this was modified in some way. So we'll talk about that. And then we've got the $50,000 reward for the extremists who opened fire on the cops. You got in the Pacific Northwest, they released a suspected and arrested and charged terrorist who firebombed Tesla facilities. They released this person. So we'll talk about all that stuff, my friends. Before we get started, head over to castbrew.com and buy Cast Brew coffee. Hey, look at that. We got America Birthday Blend. Okay, it's MAGA month, so you got to celebrate America. We also have 1776 Signature Blend, Josie, the Redheaded Libertarian Special, and that is American Cream. It's got a creamy flavor to it. And the birthday blend, of course, for America is birthday cake. So check out castbrew.com. Don't forget to become a member at timcast.com for our Discord community. And as a member, you get reserved seating at our live events. So in the description below, dccomedyloft.com, we've got 3 events coming up. Pick up tickets for our July 26th event. So we got about 2 weeks until this event goes live. And we've got some big names. Nothing that we confirmed just yet, but we're working really, really hard on this one. And if you want to come and watch me, Alex Stein, as well as some other guests, have these conversations and debates live, it'll be in the D.C. area. Get your tickets now. They're going quick. And other than that, don't forget to smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. We got a big panel. We've got a ton of guests. Let's start with you, good sir. Introduce yourself.
Good to see you again, Tim. Connor Tomlinson here, host of Tomlinson Talks on YouTube, senior contributor to Courage Media. Englishman currently looking up the prospect of being a refugee in your wonderful country. I'm so glad we founded this colony of freedom so we can escape from the Islamic caliphate that my homeland is turning into.
Indeed. All right. Well, good to have you. We also have
Chloe Carmichael, clinical psychologist and fellow at the Independent Women's Forum, and a new book about the mental health benefits of free speech at freespeechtoday.com.
Right on. And last but not least,
I'm Dr. Drew. You find me at drdrew.com. Ask Dr. Drew on Rumble and follow there. And my wife is yelling at me today. It's rumble.com/ask Dr. Drew, I think, something like that. But yeah, it's all at drdrew.com, drdrew.tv. But we were on Culture Wars, Chloe and I, and Tim very kindly said, come back anytime. And so my flight got massively delayed, so I came back same day. I couldn't get enough of this.
But we do have at least one more homegrown talent in this good sir here.
It's true. Producer Tate Brown. We got a star-studded panel here, so I'm just happy to be involved. Let's get after it.
Here we go. Here's the big story. Daily Wire's got the reporting. Now, this is Bondi or Bongino. Bongino won't remain at FBI if Bondi keeps jobs, sources say. First thing I want to do is shout out to Laura Loomer, who broke this story first thing this morning with reporting that Dan Bongino didn't show up and was threatening to quit. Daily Wire's Mary Margaret and Zach Jewell then were able to corroborate more of this reporting with additional sources. So this looks legit. Suffice it to say, Laura has had tremendous scoops in the administration. So as soon as I saw this, I was like, this one's going to be big. Dan Bongino, the deputy director of the FBI, is threatening to leave the bureau if Attorney General Pam Bondi remains on the job, a source close to Bongino tells the Daily Wire. Bongino is reportedly furious with AG Pam Bondi over her handling of the Epstein files, which has led many to believe he could walk away from the job that he took in February. The source close to Bongino said that he's effectively issued an ultimatum saying he won't work alongside Bondi. Bongino left a lucrative career in broadcasting to take the job in the Trump administration. He was not present at the FBI on Friday after a reported spat with the AG earlier this week over the Epstein situation. So apparently now we have this from Mary Margaret, who said, source close to DOJ says Kash Patel also wants Pam Bondi gone and that he'd consider leaving if Bongino leaves. Also, that there are more frustrations with other documents Bondi hasn't released. Confirming this from Shelby Talcott, Quote, Bongino in particular, one source said, is frustrated the DOJ at the start of the week declared that Epstein case effectively closed and determined that the accused sex trafficker died by suicide while awaiting trial with few further details shared. He wants more documents unsealed, the source added. So there are many conspiracy theories right now. One that I heard, this is interesting. Before the big beautiful bill is passed, we're hearing all about the Epstein files. After the big beautiful bill is passed, nothing to see here, folks. There's no client list and case closed. Prince Andrew, you're free to go. And so the theory is Trump went to deep state congressional individual staffers and perhaps the speaker and said, if you don't pass my agenda, we drop the Epstein files. So then they went and said, okay, fine. And now Trump is effectively using that blackmail to get his agenda rammed through. I have no reason to believe that's the case. I just thought it was a very interesting idea. Another conspiracy is that Dan Bongino and Kash, this is all part of their plan. And Pam Bondi is the patsy. Why? Well, Mary Margaret additionally reports, source close to the DOJ leadership tells me, quote, Deputy AG Blanche, Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino started drafting the released memo in early July and worked on it through the July 4th weekend. After providing some edits, Kash and Dan signed off on the strategy and contents. Director Patel wrote that the memo was good with FBI. So some people are now speculating. If that's true, they did themselves draft this whole strategy of an unnamed, unsigned memo and all of that stuff, but are now acting like it's an affront to them. The conspiracy theory is that they are going to put the blame on Pam Bondi for the botched release, force her to be fired, and then the more extreme version is the Epstein files have been damaged, destroyed, or lost because of Bondi. Wrap it up in a nice little ball, throw it in the trash, and then say, sorry, guys, we can't do anything about it. It was Bondi's fault.
What would be their motivation for that?
Well, if Trump, whatever's going on, when they come out and say Epstein killed himself, and they say there's nothing to see here, nobody believes it. If your intention is to not release this stuff, how do you do it? Especially when Trump said in his campaign he's going to do it. Everyone is demanding it. The story will not go away. It was the top trending story all week, no matter what they tried. They came out and announced they were investigating Brennan and Comey, and that went beep and then gone, and Epstein came back. So PR strategy wise, what would you do? Guys, we're going to need a patsy to blame. So who can we throw out the window? And then what you if you want to get real extreme with it, they could come out and say, guys, we had the files. Bondi destroyed them. We don't know why. And now no one can ever blame you again. You have centered all of the hate of Epstein to a single person, thrown him out of the administration, and anyone ever comes to you and you can be like, yeah, that's so terrible. Blame that person who did it.
Quite literally scapegoating. Okay, so
I'm not saying there's any evidence that's true, though.
No, but the reason for speculation, I'm going to say, is how much of this is sort of post hoc rationalization by those of us who still have faith in the Trump administration after Pam Bondi specifically has screwed this up so badly at pretty much every stage of it. Because you can't come out and say, right, I have this massive pile of Epstein files on my desk waiting for me to sign off, and then go around on camera saying, right, well, I've got video evidence that he was abusing children, and then invite a bunch of influencers to the White House for photo ops for evidence on a child abuse case, like a global sex trafficking ring that they then smile and take photos with, and then that turns out to be a nothing burger, and then turn around and said, well, yeah, there's absolutely nothing to this story, when literally everybody knows that the guy did not kill himself. Like, if you were going to pick one story to try and sweep under the rug, it's probably the absolute worst one, because nobody believes the official line on it. So how many of these post hoc rationalizations are to say, well, this is all one big, great 4D chess move, because Bondi has just screwed the pooch on all of this?
Yeah, it seems like she's rapidly emerged as the fall gal in this case. I mean, the base is absolutely furious. Like you said, you can't sweep this one under the rug. This is the big ticket.
I mean, if you've got this big story, Epstein and all of his clients, and they're demanding all the files you have, and you don't want to release them, how easy would it be to just accuse her of having hoarded, destroyed, or done something to them, and then no one can ever ask you again, and it's not your fault? That's a PR play.
Bongino is known as like Mr. Integrity.
Yes, I agree.
And I think he made it very clear in the time before that if he had any opportunity, he would make this happen, and that he would not I feel silly saying that he wouldn't lie to us because I know on some level they can't tell us everything. But I just have a hard time believing that they would really be feeding us that big of a sandwich, so to speak.
Here's what I actually think. I think Dan is probably kept at somewhat of an arm's length on this. There's a video. I think we actually have the video. This is an old video where Dan says, let me play this video for you guys. We'll get it. We got it right here.
There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this. We are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans.
I think what likely happened is Dan is told that by Pam, and he says, okay, good. So we're going to release this. Yes, this is the plan. We'll do it. He doesn't see the footage, and then he goes on TV and says this. Then when they release the footage, it's miserably offensive. It's like offensively stupid. There's a minute missing. There's people coming and going, and he's probably going, oh, my God. So now he's pissed, and he walks out and says, fire that lady, because he trusts them in the release of this stuff, and then they screw everything up.
Who does he say that to?
Fire them?
Fire that lady.
Trump.
Right. So there's no way this all isn't happening without his involvement, right?
Oh, yeah.
So on some level, and you can imagine Bongino and Kash Patel going to Trump and saying, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And him siding with them. And look, a lot of people end up in Trump's lives unhappy with Trump. And it's situations like this where he dismisses people, he uses them, he sets them up, and they're cast out if they're not useful to him. So this is all smelling of that kind of thing again. My bet is these guys will not leave. They're not going anywhere. But Pam Bondi seems to be really in danger.
Yep.
And remember, she wasn't the first pick, right?
At Gates.
Mm-hmm.
Well, them going to Trump would also explain why Trump was so annoyed when the reporter raised it at the press conference, because he's probably been having conversations about this behind the scenes.
There's no way he's not involved in it. He is. Although Adam Kroll was pointing out the other day. He goes, Trump is a builder and he's used to hiring subcontractors, and they've all got to be great and they've got to be come in on time and under budget. And if they are not, they are out. Yep. And so he's used to doing this.
Something was definitely off at that meeting where Trump was like, are we still talking about that? I mean, he knows that everybody's talking about that. I think Trump is so masterful usually with social situations. I was actually surprised that he tried something that fell so flat. I rarely see him try something that falls flat. And that was thin and it fell flat. There was something off in that meeting.
Well, he's been getting increasingly flustered in press situations, like the F-bomb right after the Iran-Israel situation. And so it's like, I'm a big Trump guy, obviously, but it's like a little concerning that he's having these moments where he's completely, seems like out of control, or that situation's out of control.
I don't know, if your foreign policy was the entire time playing daycare for ethno-religious grudges that last thousands of years in the Middle East, I'd probably drop a couple of F-bombs.
Yeah, I
I
disagree with both you guys. I think these were all carefully managed and carefully placed. The F-bomb and what he said at the cabinet meeting, he achieved his ends.
I mean, it's either that or he's firing warning shots.
What was his end then?
Just not get the press off it. Just shut up for a minute.
Okay.
Just shut up. It doesn't have to go away forever. Just you people shut up so we can figure this out.
I mean, the way Trump does operate is he does like the fire off warning shots. So it's like that could have been directed at one singular person watching that interview. I mean, that's been happening for years with the way Trump operates.
I like the way you put that, though, Tomlinson, playing daycare for a bunch of...
That's the same with British politics at the moment. It's like you've just got to play daycare with grown men's egos to stop each other devouring each other. So I can imagine Trump, who just wants to build things, getting very frustrated.
Yeah. Let's jump to this portion of the story from Wired. Metadata shows the FBI's raw Jeffrey Epstein prison video was likely modified. There's no evidence the footage was deceptively manipulated, but ambiguities around how the video was processed may further fuel conspiracy theories about Epstein's death. Now, what they basically say is they don't say there's evidence that they made fake footage, but at the bare minimum they say it was modified, likely using Adobe Premiere Pro.
Wow.
It appears to have been assembled from at least 2 different source clips, saved multiple times, exported, and then uploaded to the DOJ's website, where it was presented as raw footage. It was not. So when that minute is missing, that probably was a mistake of a crappy editor. So I'm imagining Dan Bongino seeing this video come out and going, "What did you do? I went on TV and said we had this, and you put that out." So I think this plays a huge role in why he's pissed. But then the question becomes, the video is not raw. It is edited. Who did it and why? And what's the real story? And is it possible that Dan Bongino's frustration and threatening to quit is, it could be he's a man of profound integrity, which I do think he is. I trust him. And so he's seeing all of these failings and being like, I can't be party, whatever it is you guys are doing. However, those who do not trust him, it could be you botched our cover up and screwed it up, you're fired.
I think the first is much more likely.
I agree.
I think also he had probably not seen the footage and gone off word of mouth when he went on television and said the guy killed himself, because he was told we have footage of Epstein killing himself, which is why he sounded uncharacteristically uncertain and uncomfortable when being pressed on it by the press. It wasn't that he was engaging in an active cover-up. He's saying, I'm going to put my reputation on going on trust for something that I've been told. When it comes out, he's like, well, now I look like a fool.
Could you imagine if he quits, comes back to his show and says, guys, they never proved to me he killed himself. They told me he did. They said, trust us. We'll get the footage out. Just trust us. And that's why he went on TV and said it.
Is he allowed to be that open, though? I don't know. Like, is there an NDA, like a non-disclosure? If he leaves, is he legally prohibited from disclosing that type of thing?
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, you also had the weird interview with Bret Baier where they were asking, Bret Baier was asking him and Kash about it, and they were like almost exasperated, like, yes, he killed himself. There's no doubt in my mind he killed himself.
And
like
please don't kill me.
Yeah, it was like a weird cornered animal. Like,
Oh, I thought he was going to start blinking SOS.
Yeah.
in that interview. Yeah, am I the only person in America, though, that doesn't care about this story? I hate this story.
it feels a bit Reddit at this point.
It feels.
Epstein
It's
stuff?
exactly what it feels like to me. It's just like, I've done. Who cares? We'll figure it out. We'll not figure it out. We're going to find out when we find
I
out.
think it's pretty important if all of your governments and your academia and your media and that is run by a paedophile ring. I think that's pretty important.
Probably with your government, too.
Unbelievably so.
But embedded in that is the presumption that they have a reason to keep this stuff quiet. You floated the theory about getting the bill through. There's other international relations theories and many theories out there why they feel the need to keep it. Would not be trivial, right? Why they kept it? Why they have to keep it quiet? So keep it quiet so you can tell us and then tell us. That's it.
But I think if it's so seismic that they are keeping it quiet for a strategic reason, they won't want to tell us because it would collapse trust in. I think it would, well, until all of the parties are dead, either through natural causes or by whatever got Epstein. So
even then, you get the JFK files years later. Then who knows what?
Yeah, you get a redacted version. But if this really does implicate multiple world governments, multiple foreign intelligence agencies, multiple international institution heads, members of monarchies, I mean, the stakes are almost too high for them to actually fess it up.
I think it's what it symbolizes is that there's probably a lot of people that are beholden to blackmail, and what does that mean then as far as, agendas and levers of power that
blackmail
are held over?
is a part of how our government operates, apparently, which I was not aware of. I've been made aware of by several people.
I would just assume that if we go back to like J. Edgar Hoover, it's just I'm pretty sure some kind of blackmail is always
go back to Thomas Jefferson and the affair he had.
Yeah.
I mean, what was her name? Maria
Sally Jennings?
No, Maria. Oh, that was another. No one ever found out about that one. But no, he had an affair with a woman, and her husband blackmailed him.
Wow.
You don't know about this? It was in it's in the play. It's actually in the play Hamlet. Hamilton.
We have a running joke in the UK that the Conservative Party is a sexual blackmail ring with a political party attached.
James T.
It
Callender.
was Hamilton that was blackmailed, and Jefferson made the most of it. I got it wrong. It's in the play.
Oh, it says James T. Callender is the man famously associated with blackmailing Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, Jefferson got also, yeah. So they were all being blackmailed.
Scandal-mongering journalist, after being financially supported by Jefferson to publish attacks on the Federalists, turned on Jefferson when he wasn't rewarded with a political appointment. In retaliation, he published accusations that Jefferson had a long-term sexual relationship with his slave, Sally Hemings.
So if anything, this is a story about America's greatness, blackmail.
And then Hamilton, look up Hamilton's blackmail. That story did break.
Yeah.
And he was in charge of the entire economy at the time. And it was
James Reynolds and his wife blackmailed Hamilton. Maria Reynolds had an affair with Hamilton in 1791. James Reynolds discovered it and extorted money from Hamilton to keep the affair a secret.
And the blackmail at the time was, you're trying to establish the economy for this country. We can't even trust you not to be blackmailed. Why should we trust you with the bond, centralized bond and centralized currencies?
There is a much older and bigger conspiracy that the U.S. never broke away from the crown. That when
Ian in the room.
Ian's not here. But the conspiracy theory is that basically when the British, they're at war and they're fighting in the colonies, they reassess the fighting, and Parliament, the king, they're basically like, wait, hold on, they're trying to do what? Well, they want to have a government where they just vote for whoever. It's like, then why are we fighting? And we'll just win the elections. And so then loyalists started running with resources provided from the crown to win elections. And they said, so long as our people win the elections, we control this country anyway.
Yeah, and I mean also like the loyalists as long as you were cool with one of our founding fathers, you were good. Like Lord Fairfax was the only member of British peerage that actually kept his titles after the war because he was buddies with George Washington. Like, yeah, there was a way out of it. You just had to be cool with, just be cool with George.
I think said conspiracy may have run into the wall in 1945 when FDR cannibalized most of the British Empire. I think the deal was rescinded back then. We've had multiple examples of MPs in the former government just having sexual blackmail run on them. Like one MP phoned, I think it was the whip's office, is basically the sort of guy that keeps all the MPs in line, saying, I'm in a brothel and I was brought here by a KGB agent. Can you bail me out? Like one other one phoned up a member of his office in the middle of the night saying that he'd hired a rent boy who had stolen all his money, and so he needed to borrow money from the party to quash blackmail. There was
Did you guys know that?
My life needs to be a lot more interesting.
Did you guys know that 43 out of 46 U.S. presidents are believed to be descendants of Charlemagne? It's kind of not surprising if you're like some dude who conquered and had a bunch of kids, has a bunch of descendants, to be fair.
Yeah, I think like pretty much every Western European is descended from Charlemagne.
It's like Genghis Khan and the
Right.
Asian side.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at some of the names that were rumored to be floating around on this Epstein list, like there's certainly blackmail going on. I mean, these are huge players.
Look at that. Virtually
weird that-
every person of European descent is likely descended from Charlemagne.
Yeah, he was a player. He had Riz.
It's
Spoken
weird
Riz,
that
yeah.
Virginia Dufresne, committed suicide just a few weeks ago. She was going to be one of the star witnesses. She's the 17-year-old in the picture with Prince
right,
Andrew.
yes.
And then she was run off the road by a bus or something.
And the bus driver
Survived.
denied it.
Yeah, and then she
She posts this.
committed suicide.
Well, she posts this thing where she's all battered, saying, "I just need a few days to see my kids." Like, who are you telling that to?
and then she died. I mean, there is something, I think, going on there. I don't know what.
the same with Robert Maxwell, right? He took a fall off of his boat, and he just so happens to have been working for Mossad. Like, I know your chat's just going to light up right now, but like, this all stinks. It totally glows. It's radioactive.
They've been sloppy with the assassination since the Clintons, allegedly. Because, like, I mean, there was the one where the lady that accused Bill Clinton, and she was working at a Starbucks, and someone came in, it was like in Georgetown, just shot her at point blank range and didn't take anything. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, it was a hold-up gone wrong. And it's like, they're getting sloppy. What's going on?
Wow, what was that story?
It was an accuser of Clinton in Georgetown. She worked at a Starbucks.
When?
This would have been the late 90s.
Really?
Yeah.
The guy just walked in.
Yeah, the guy just walked in.
There was
shot
that.
her,
There was
point blank.
that journalist who was investigating the CIA who committed suicide by shooting himself twice in the head.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, he just went into a lake and stabbed himself in the back 25 times. It's classic suicide. Yeah.
The dude who shot himself, I always forget his name. They argue, well, he shot himself and it wasn't a lethal shot. So then he shot himself again to die. And most people hear that you shot yourself twice and that they don't believe that, but the disgusting and unfortunate and tragic reality is people often
It happens.
miss.
It happens, but you got to look. You got to show me the diagrams.
It's also
Right,
extra
right.
impressive that he did it in the back of his head. Like,
I think one of them was, actually.
there you go.
And with tape over his
Yeah,
mouth.
I don't know.
It's crazy.
He actually managed to put cement around his feet in a bucket and then hop all the way to the bottom of the ocean. It's pretty good.
Yeah, he's a committed guy.
So what are we uncovering here? What are we getting at?
We're getting, they're getting,
Wet works is real.
They're getting
Why
sloppy.
wouldn't the governments engage in these kinds of things? And yeah, you know what I've referred to it as? You know, they say that wealth lasts 3 generations. So does the liberal economic order. So does governmental power. So the idea goes, some young kid is born on a farm and he works really, really hard and he says, you know, I could do this better if I just had this tool. Makes a crazy tool, starts using it and says, I could make another one of these for my neighbor. Starts making a bunch of these crazy tools, builds a company. All of a sudden, he owns a widget factory and he's super rich. Has a kid. That kid is born into wealth. And he says, here's how you run the widget factory. And we have a bunch of widget factories. That kid grows up super rich, helps run the company. His kid has a kid. That kid grows up wealthy, and it's a copy of a copy. The third generation doesn't know the hard work it took and the ingenuity to revolutionize the system, didn't have the experience in the field to figure out how to innovate it, and so the wealth falls off. Or it becomes institutionalized, and this grandchild doesn't really know how to run anything. I think the same thing is true with the liberal economic order. After World War II, you got some gritty MFers who were involved in the craziest stuff, literally nuking another country, and they're like, here's what we're going to do with the liberal economic order. We're going to control the world via finance and trade. Here's how we're going to do it. Then they have a second generation. They come in and say, here's how you do it. Then there's a third generation. Now we're in the fourth generation of it, and these people don't know how to even do a simple cover-up.
Yeah.
Guys.
Adobe Pro. And
What are you doing?
This is corruption 101. What are we doing
Yeah,
here?
what you do is after you process the footage on Premiere, you just load the footage back into the surveillance footage to turn it into a raw file and then publish it. Come on, that's cover-up 101. What's going on? Hire me.
It's rookie stuff. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Come on, elites, get it together.
Gary Webb. Gary Webb was found with 2 self-inflicted gunshot wounds to the head, as determined by the Sacramento County coroner. It is unusual for suicide victims to inflict multiple gunshot wounds to the head, prompting widespread curiosity. The coroner's report addressed this directly, stating that while rare, dual gunshot suicides can happen, are in fact a distinct possibility. And that is true because, you can miss. And it's tragic, but whatever. There's a documented case who shot himself twice in the head. Indeed, he was investigating the CIA Contra allegations.
You can also slip and fall ice skating in hell. Like,
Yep.
It can happen.
Yeah, hey, I've seen Final Destination. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah, maybe.
What happened to the man? Well, he was driving down the street when someone flicked a match, which caused a dog to bark, scaring a guy on a bike who fell over, tipping over a street cone.
Next thing you know,
Yeah. If you're driving behind a logging truck, that's on you. Yeah.
It just happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I know what you're saying. I hear what you're saying when Dr. Drew say you're bored with it, or he's
I'm tired. I'm sick of it.
because we're not getting anywhere with it. And the story now is not even
That's
Epstein.
exactly right. We're not going to get anywhere.
But it's the story is not Epstein. The story is now Dan Bongino.
I was just looking up the age of Oliver North. Why doesn't he come and tell us how all this happens? I mean, he was in the middle of this kind of stuff, and he's never really copped to it being something out of the ordinary. He always seemed kind of like, I was doing my job. It's like, how does this happen? What is his view on this? Why aren't there more people coming forward helping us understand how our government works if this is really part of it?
I think there's a strong probability what is happening is exactly as intended, because there is always there's Hanlon's razor, never attribute to malice that which can be explained by incompetence.
Yep.
And boy, is government incompetent. So that's probably a distinct possibility. But it really is somewhat hard to believe that they keep botching it this poorly when it's a rather simple endeavor. So I'm like, when I think about how everything's dropped and the stories, I'm just thinking, what is their intended goal with all of this? Because it's not hard to actually cover it up. If they really wanted to cover it up, they could have just been like, here's 3 sentences, Dan, for you to say on TV, and then that's it. We're not going to talk about it again.
well, I don't know if it was a figure of speech or what, but Pam Bondi, when she went on Jesse Waters, I think it was that one, where she said at first that they had given her just a very teeny tiny little file, and then she learned, she says, and this is her word, that there were truckloads of information at SDNY, Southern District, New York. Truckloads of information. So I just don't get it now when they're now seeing that there's nothing. I mean, Drew, I hear you though. Like, I mean, as far as what exactly happened there or whatever, I don't have a burning desire to know. But I guess the question is, can we trust this administration, especially because they held this up to us? Pam Bondi gave those reporters folders that said something like, most transparent administration ever, Epstein files. They made this into a symbol of transparency.
Yeah.
And so for them to now, I think people feel jerked around by it.
Yes. It's very similar to what's happening over at Maha, where you said you were going to get rid of those Moderna vaccines. Like, but to me, look, temporality has been left off of everyone's concern. Everything needs to happen in its time.
I have patience with Maha. They're doing great.
What if they bring in Matt Gaetz now?
I would love that.
And you saw Dershowitz talk about this too, didn't you?
No, what did he say?
Oh, he said,
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, I've seen the file. It's real. There's a lot of stuff there. I can't tell you.
And he said, I know who's on it, but because of confidentiality, I can't say, and they should release it.
But there was sort of a sense of urgency that there's a lot of stuff there. What he was
I think
suggesting.
Dershowitz wants it released because he's accused, and there's evidence tying him to the Epstein stuff, and he's like, release it and show that I'm not. Come on.
Right.
Yeah. Or at the bare minimum, he's saying this knowing it won't get released, and he wants to make it seem like he's innocent.
Oh boy.
I think part of this.
What do you do?
It turns the complete moral corruption of our ruling class into the white noise of managed decline. Because the more you hear about the mismanagement of the scandal and less about the actual scandal itself, you come to accept the fact that everyone who is ruling us being completely depraved as a feature rather than a bug. And so it just allows the system to coast along on its exhaust fumes.
Let's roll tape. We got this story from the New York Times. The FBI is using polygraphs to test officials' loyalty. Some senior officials who have taken the test have been asked whether they said anything negative about FBI Director Kash Patel. We're in some kind of cold civil war, or whatever you want to call it. There exists currently two distinct factions fighting for control of our government. I don't know how else to put it. With whatever's going with Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, and the Epstein stuff, to the fact that it's not just the FBI, but I asked Secretary Noem, who said in the DHS, they're doing the same thing. They are trying to weed out individuals they feel are betraying this country or working against it. When you have numerous stories that our federal agencies are doing polygraphs for loyalty tests, okay, that shows there is distinct separations of loyalties. So who are these people? I mean, we know what Kash has said about Comey being perpetrating the largest criminal conspiracy against this country. So that the argument is there is a large amount of people in government, top to bottom, who are disloyal to the democratic process that we had in electing Donald Trump, and we have to weed them out. So we are in some kind of cold administrative civil war. I don't know what you want to call it.
Well, I mean, I can't blame the Trump administration after what they went through in Trump 1.0. You almost can't be too paranoid after like everything that they went through. I mean, with James Comey and everything that was literally happening from the inside that was planned. I mean, the whole thing, even when he was like, oh, they're spying on my campaign and nobody believed him. And it's like the whole fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me thing. I think he legitimately probably feels like he can't be too paranoid right now. And everyone who's attached to him and loyal to him, I imagine, might feel the same.
I don't think we're just coming to understand how much the deep state, the bureaucratic state, is ossified and believes that they're in control of the government. I've heard two stories that were hair-raising to me. One was a friend of mine, a scientist named Paul Alexander at HHS. He was at a State Department, this Trump 1.0. He's a Trinidadian guy, and he was at a State Department party, and they thought he was part of their whole contingency. And they pulled him aside and they said, we run this government. This guy at the head, he's here for 4 years. We are in charge. We determine what goes on here. That is disgusting to me, that they are not serving the will of the people. That is anathema to the basic principles here. Then I talked to another guy. I was flying home from D.C. a couple months ago. He'd been in the DOJ, I think it was during the Bush administration. He said, oh, yeah, it was happening then, too. And we would just hire our own people alongside of the bureaucracy that was there in order to get stuff done. And HHS can't really do that because it's so complicated and all the research organizations. But this has been happening for a long time. Look, say the Jacobins thought that they were sort of developing freedom and shaking free of oligarchy. They just took it's Louis XIV bureaucracy and ran it themselves, but it still was a bureaucratic state, and that's the problem right now.
Well, they basically we were like, all that authoritarianism. Can we hyper concentrate it into a speed run guillotine session? But then
that makes perfect sense though, because they're not taking problem with authoritarianism as a procedure when they shriek about fascism. They're complaining that you don't agree with their underlying philosophy of egalitarianism. They are fine with amassing power if they think they're doing it on behalf of equality. And so this is why they can always say, well, we're actually the real Democrats, even though we're taking non-democratic action, because we presume literally everyone is a blank slate. We're all the same underneath.
Social ills are always done in the name of good. always, whether it's Mao or Lenin or you name it, Hitler, always in the name of good, always. That's how bad is done in society on the social level.
But I mean, you can tell the left's reaction to Trump 2.0 is so much different than 1.0, because 1.0 they would like harp on about principles and this, that, and the other. 2.0 they're just like, this is so evil, and then they just launch a bunch of like BS court cases to try and stifle and gum up the system. Versus, yeah, like throw back to 1.0, and they were using heavy mechanism. They're like, yeah, it's all about principles, and like Trump isn't principled, he doesn't stand. This time around, they're just like, he's so evil. Like they're clearly feel defeated, and that's all they can do is just be like, oh, he's so evil, what do we do? And they're just trying to go up the system, like I said. So
Man, it's like there's always something in it. Trump wins. We've got this the ICE raids are happening, there's good stuff happening, but there's got to be some weird gum in the works, some weird thing. Maybe the reality, I when I was interviewing Sebastian Gorka, he said the deep state is still here, it's there, and I said, have we won? And he said no.
But even if you sack them, this is what the conversation should have been slightly before. Like, even if Trump roots out all of these people, even if he throws like some of them in prison for spying on his campaign or covering up the Epstein files or whatever, you've still got thousands of state bureaucrats that you are going to put out of a job. They cannot do anything else. They've never made anything else in their lives. They live and breathe this ideology. What do you think? They're going to go quietly into this good night? No, they're going to form some sort of like parallel system that's going to constantly try and a well-funded parallel system that's going to constantly try and undermine his elected mandate at every turn. And so there's two things I want to say on this. First of all, I don't know how effective polygraphs will be, because pretty much all of our opponents are total psychos, and so they're not really amenable to this sort of thing. Second of all, did you see the photos that came out today from the State Department?
Which ones?
They've sacked a load of people, and they've been putting up posters saying that if you're still left behind, remember, your mission is to fight fascism. Not to, again, serve the American people. No, it's to create an ideological permanent government that defends against people noticing differences between cultures.
Yep. Where can I find that?
I'll send it to Serge. I've got it bookmarked.
That's a good point about the polygraphs, though. Like the worst liars are actually probably the ones that would pass them. I mean, the polygraphs are not even admissible in court, are they, Drew? No.
I'm just thinking your asylum is granted. You're quoting American poets now. Good. I've never seen a Brit do that.
Hey, I'm a fan of Wendell Berry, so I like the phrase strip mining. That's fantastic. I think asylum may well be necessary eventually, considering the only thing that keeping my country's hope alive is actually the American State Department coming over and reminding us that we invented things like the liberty to speak freely in the first place, because we have been persecuting our population and calling them far right and locking people up for praying outside abortion clinics. Meanwhile, we're just letting jihadists roam free in the streets. Yeah. And the only thing that's stopping the government even going full force on that is the State Department going, guys, remember, you are still in NATO. Like, we can clip your wings at any time.
Yeah, we saw Amy Coney Barrett in her and over and over again, she appeals to hundreds of years of English law in her writings, and it's like, I think Americans at this point might have a better grasp on the English history than the English.
Look at this. Colleagues, if you remain, resist fascism. Remember the oath you swore to uphold. We have a death cult in our government.
Wow.
And they are actively
identification.
They are actively trying to subvert the will of the American voter.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Biden won, and Republicans grumbled and got mad, and many of them claimed the election was stolen. Then, during Biden's administration, they sought to imprison Trump, his lawyers. The right has never responded in kind to the kind of force used by the left. Not on the streets, not in government, not even when they have power now. And that's a terrifying prospect.
What's really terrifying is, I think, Trump derangement syndrome. I'm a clinical psychologist, so I have to say that obviously this is not, I understand it's not in the DSM, but I secretly think it should be.
It's well characterized.
What's that?
It's well characterized.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's so diluted. And then again, the projective identification, for anyone that doesn't know, is where you have what's going on with you, but you pretend, or you believe even, that you see it in other people. And so I think what is so terrifying about it is that I think that there's such a huge proportion of the country that doesn't, just simply disagree with Trump, but that like literally thinks he's an authoritarian and a fascist. And I've said to some of these people, I've tried to have rational conversations. I'm like, well, if he was an authoritarian, why during COVID would he have insisted on giving all of the decisions to each individual states? That would have been a perfect opportunity, right, for him to do a mass power grab. I try, but I never can get through. And I've talked to really intelligent people about this who ultimately shrug their shoulders and they say, I don't know, Chloe, I just think he's an authoritarian fascist. And I just can't get anywhere with it.
People just self-diagnose when they say shit like that. They say, you're a narcissist. That's it. Narcissists trigger other narcissists.
Well, we were talking a great deal about this morning, the mass formation psychosis that is taking over this country and your country. And I don't know if there's a functional solution to dealing with millions of people who live in, let's just do this for the sake of argument. They believe the world is flat. I mean that figuratively.
Yeah.
There is a majority that we reasonably discern the earth is round. The average person who does assumes it to be true based on the majority of society's views on this, the scientific studies you can read. But they tend to be rational about it. Like you can talk to a regular person and say, fair point, I never checked, but I think it probably makes sense based on the horizon and the things I've read. The flat earth people are like, I saw a bunch of videos online. We think the earth is flat and that there's a giant ice wall, and these things make no sense. They're made up things on the internet. Turn that into politics.
Yeah.
How do you deal with millions of people voting? Imagine if people were voting to tip the earth. They're like, we're going to tip the earth over. And it's just like, well, what are you talking about? You can't do that. But this is the world they live in. What do we do with federal law enforcement that think the earth is flat?
This is what the Founding Fathers were so concerned about, right? That's why they limited it originally to landowners, and then that's why they came up with the idea of public education. They were really concerned with who should be a participant in a democratic process. And we decided, after Andrew Jackson, that as much democracy as possible was the answer. And I think most of us value that. But education, Tim, is a key, critical ingredient in that if you're don't have an educated public, it's going to be a free-for-all. Although you have an educated public, it's not going so well over there either. I'm not sure that's the entire answer.
We don't know. Well, what happens when you replace the public with a completely different population from halfway around the world who are not all that intelligent and often marry their cousins and vote along ethnic and religious lines? Well, you get London, Leicester, Birmingham, Bradford, etc. I think that's also partially a problem over here because whether illegal or legal, you have a hell of a lot of people that just rely on government handouts from the productive, entrepreneurially spirited American public, and that just means the Democrats can just buy off their votes and have them as a clientele class.
But Connor, I know you're having problems in London, but have you ever just considered the upside that you've got curry and falafel?
Well, it turns out that actually the biggest curry producer in the UK is Wetherspoon's Pubs. So really? I don't think that the British are in a deep and yearning desire for authentic Indian street food mixed by hand or foot. I think that we have the recipe and that we don't need to import 1 million Indians in 4 years, which
I don't know. Curry's awesome.
It's not great.
I love it.
I would rather have civilization. That would be.
Oh, I'm not talking about mixing with hand or foot. I'm saying going to a civilized restaurant to sit down for a nice,
even then,
coconut curry or something.
The feet's what gives it a little funk. That's what you want. That's what you want.
Well, though, you're raising an interesting point about the religion issue and the culture issue, because as you said as well, Drew, like with the founding fathers and what they were thinking about who should be voting. And one of the things that they were very clear about is that we would only survive as a republic with freedom if we actually had religion, right? Like they actually
Christianity specifically.
Yeah, I don't know if they specified. I wish I did. I've been reading about this more lately.
There were no Muslim founding fathers.
Right. And so I think though it's become almost like a taboo to discuss, but the Christian religion does, for example, when it comes to the concept of justice, that the Judeo-Christian, really, I mean, it's in both the Old Testament, that when you look at justice, when you look at court systems, according to a Judeo-Christian system, you may not favor or disfavor someone because they are rich or because they are poor. And men and women in the New Testament were uniquely placed on an equal level when it comes to the way that they should be treated. And that is a foundation, again, when we think about our democracy and about justice here versus, quote, social justice, or as you alluded to, bringing in a culture where actually the status, the sex, the, standing of a person does matter in the way that justice is adjudicated to that person. Or Sharia law, for example, has a totally different approach to justice.
We have about 90 Sharia courts operating in the UK.
I mean,
most
that's
in Europe.
terrifying.
Let's jump to the story from the Telegraph. Trump to be denied address to Parliament on state visit. U.S. President will not be given the honor enjoyed by Barack Obama or Emmanuel Macron. Telegraph understands. I think the U.S. should bring regime change to the UK.
I agree. We'll welcome you as liberators.
Let's go.
Actually,
All right.
we don't have a single good political party in the UK right now. Genuinely, I'm not joking. I'm not
And
overstating it.
you would be able to do nothing if we did invade.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I mean, our army is the lowest number since the Napoleonic Wars. I think we only have a couple of thousand active troops.
Trump, if you're listening, this is going to be easy.
Are we ready for an entirely Muslim state in our country yet? I don't know.
The
first Sharia state
admitted to the
Union?
England? Aren't things sort of shifting politically?
Shifting in what sense? So in 2024 we had the last election. Labour got in on what Rupert Lowe calls a landslip. So they got a landslide majority, but with fewer votes than Jeremy Corbyn lost by in 2019. They are the most unpopular government on record. They're brand new low. It turns out the space beneath the bottom of the barrel, and that's where Keir Starmer's sitting right now. The reason he's probably doing this, by the way, so there's a parliamentary recess in the middle of September. That's when he's inviting Trump. It's because he and all of his members of his cabinet have slated Trump relentlessly. So David Lammy, who is the thickest man in Britain, who's our foreign secretary, once wrote an article in Time magazine when Trump was first president, calling him a member of the KKK, a neo-Nazi, a misogynist, and now you're expecting him to meet with the Trump administration, have a cordial conversation, and they're worried that half of the Labour government is going to walk out in protest if Trump does address Parliament, so that's why they're not having it. So Labour are in power. They're currently kowtowing to the Muslim lobby because they've traditionally relied on the Muslim vote, and about 5 of their cabinet members, three to 5, are probably going to lose their seat at the next election because they only won by a couple of hundred votes because Muslim independent candidates ran on a purely pro-Palestine ticket in that area and almost won. There were 4 Muslim pro-Palestine MPs elected at the last election. The former leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, is about to start a new party with them and take Labour MPs along with them. So they're hemorrhaging votes to their left. As far as the right in Britain, as far as it exists, the last Conservative government just delivered net 1 million immigration every year. You guys have that for the whole of your country. We're the size of New York State, so we have the same level of legal migration as you guys did under a Conservative government. They got thrown out with their worst record in 100 years, and they've instead appointed Kemi Badenoch to lead their party rather than Robert Jenrick. Robert Jenrick resigned from the previous government over their immigration record, so he's quite principled. Kemi Badenoch is... Well, she was born from Nigerian parents using health tourism, which is how she got her citizenship, lived in Nigeria, then America, identifies as a first-generation immigrant, has basically been propped up by the party for her entire career, and in her maiden speech, she wanted to remove the caps on student and working migration. She also identifies not as British, but as Yoruba, and calls other Nigerians her ethnic enemies. Brilliant patriotic leadership. Then you have Reform. Reform are topping the polls. That's Nigel Farage's party. Nigel Farage, about 2 days ago, gave an interview saying, I am to the left of the country on immigration. Nigel Farage... Yeah, I know. What? Most Americans don't know this. Nigel Farage has spent the last year betraying his base. Entirely betraying them. He has said mass deportations are an impossibility. We're not going to do them. Even after Trump won on them.
Wow.
He turned around and said there are clips of this you'll be able to get. You had Winston Marshall on a few weeks ago. On Winston Marshall's podcast, he said, if politically we alienate Islam, by 2050 we will lose.
I saw that, yeah.
Like, sorry, Nigel, what parts of Islamic theology do you want to incorporate into your party platform? What is winning? Now, it turns out that his company is his party is a company. He's got 2 directors. One is Nigel Farage. One is his former party chairman called Zia Yusuf. Zia Yusuf gave probably about £200,000 in political donations when the party was about to win the election. He's been Nigel's vizier ever since. He's kind of like Jafar from Aladdin. He left the party. He insulted the party. 2 days later, he was brought back in as the head of UK Doge, and he is now personally appointing loads of Muslim candidates to this party, which is topping the polls because it's meant to be the anti-immigration party. So we genuinely have nobody to vote for. The only thing that we have a bit of hope on the horizon, Reform kicked out 2 of its MPs fairly recently. One over some anodyne business thing. The other was Rupert Lowe. Rupert Lowe was elected last year. He's basically our Trump. This is my thesis. 67-year-old granddad, spotless record, independently wealthy, donates his salary to charity every month, and has just been dubbed by a communist organisation called Hope Not Hate the most extreme right-wing MP in Parliament. Bloody hell is he. He's now an independent MP, and he's launched his own movement to try and propose policies. The problem is he's got no party. So he's got absolutely no likelihood at the moment of being the next Prime Minister. So we're not even where you guys were in 2015. We are like at least 10 to 15 years behind the discourse, and we don't have 10 to 15 years to fix this.
What's going on with speech? Free speech?
12,000 people a year are arrested.
Because that's your antidote.
Kind of, but there's honestly,
antidote.
Well, it is an antidote, but there's no talking your way out of the demographic situation. There's no persuading millions of people who live cheek by jowl in ethnic enclaves with the host population.
What does cheek by jowl mean?
Right next to each other.
Okay.
So they live entirely in their own communities.
this.
They don't speak English. We're one of the most densely populated countries in the world, right? London is, England overall is about 70 million people officially. We think about 80 million. We've got 2 to 3 million illegal immigrants on the books that we just don't know where they are. But we've got Muslim enclaves in our country from where the grooming gang scandal, which I'm sure you've all heard about, came from. They cover for each other. They knew it was going on. The head of the Ramadan Foundation in 2016 said the reason Pakistanis don't speak up about this and they'll march for Gaza, but they won't march to clear their names for grooming gangs is because they don't want to be seen as, quote, siding with the white enemy. There is no speaking those people round. It is really just a situation of having millions of people in our country that do not want to abide by our way of life, that hate us, and you're just not going to persuade them.
Well, I also think your king hates you.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. King Charles helped co-found the World Economic Forum. He was recently hosting Ramadan events on royal grounds, and he decided to do 2 camera videos saying that he was saying Quran verses. For some reason, he's obsessed with fostering interfaith dialogue.
He also did give back Canada to the Anishinaabeg and Algonquin people.
Oh, and he also helped hand over Hong Kong to the Chinese in 1997.
Well, that he literally did. He did a land acknowledgement for the Anishinaabeg and Algonquin in Canada as the King of Canada, arguing that they've never ceded this land, implying that he doesn't. He like that statement from him is recognizing he is.
I am illegitimate here.
Right, exactly. That it's an illegitimate claim to the land.
Also, Emmanuel Macron came over about 2 days ago and gave a speech to Parliament. So we let that treacherous frog address it, but not President Trump. And the King then gave a speech at a banquet where Macron and Starmer were present. And he also said, we need to tackle the challenge of irregular migration. They're euphemizing it as irregular. Not illegal, when...
Irregular.
We've had 20,000 men so far this year, 180-odd thousand total since 2018, break into our country via boat from France. We have a literal moat surrounding our country. There should not be a single illegal immigrant coming in, but we still let them come in. The majority are Afghans and Eritreans who commit sex offences at 20 times the rate of a British national. I have heard from, let's say, credible intelligence tip-offs, they're smuggling weapons in and they're recruiting from jihadist camps in Afghanistan. We've already caught multiple Iranian nationals who are spying on behalf of Tehran that came in through this route. So we are just battery farming jihadists at the public expense. It costs us £14 billion a year to house them in 4-star hotels with private healthcare.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So actually, Tim,
Next time I go, I'm just going to lie and claim I'm Eritrean.
just land in France, hop on a rubber duck, come over, and I'll be paying for your bloody hotel.
You just call
That's how
that
you do
California.
Yeah.
Or New York.
What does
Or New
it
York.
say about like your system and by large like European, American, Australian systems where we consistently keep voting less immigration, and we get the opposite every single time?
Since 1974, in every election and referendum, we voted for less migration.
I don't know, but Donald Trump, he said in the
Until
boys, the boys are coming in and people are getting pissed.
Yeah.
He just raided a bunch of pot farms, and the left is coming out. I love this. ICE raided marijuana farms and found child slave labor. And the left said they're kidnapping children from produce farms. It's like,
Wow.
is that what you got?
How will we possibly drug ourselves to accept living in California if children aren't harvesting marijuana crops?
It's a salient question.
I don't know. I think we should occupy California. Like, I think Trump, the federal government, should go and just put a rigid federal authority over. I mean, listen, This is not unconstitutional. Trump has the authority to invoke the Insurrection Act and go into California and say the laws are not being followed. There are children slaves on these farms. Just with that information alone, Trump can say, he can go light. He can say, Gavin Newsom, I am telling you right now, if you do not give me a report, you don't have to report to me, but I'm saying if the federal government does not get an assessment of the law enforcement against child slave labor on the farms in your state, the feds, we will invoke the Insurrection Act, and we will bring militarized control over your state for that reason.
Can you do that after you liberate London, please? You'll be very interested in this. For the last 3 or so months at least, the main topic that's dominated the UK discourse, get ready to drink chat, civil war. Now, we don't talk like this in our country. It's not a thing that we've really spoken about since, the 17th century. The Brits are quite shy and polite and reserved. But now you've got former government advisor Dominic Cummings, who'd be a fantastic guest on the culture war, by the way, coming forward and saying, yeah, I was doing riot briefings in 2020. You cannot underestimate the level of delusion these politicians have and their urge to project to the public like they want to still pretend they're in control. And all they seem to be doing is clamping down on people noticing the problem rather than stopping the immigration and multicultural appeasement policies that have led to this problem. And there's an academic called David Betts who works at King's College London, and he's studied war literature for a very long time. He wrote 2 very good pieces in Military Strategy magazine on this, and he's become an overnight celebrity because all he said was, I've just been studying the fact that, well, in the next 3 to 5 years, by all available metrics, you've got divisive identity politics. You've got the state clamping down on the native population, saying that they've become aware of the downgrading in status, and so they can't notice this on social media. They're still importing jihadists, and it's likely we're going to get vigilante attacks on critical infrastructure. So within 3 to 5 years, you're probably going to have a civil war kick off, and you're going to lose 20,000 lives a year. And people are going, well, why are you saying this now? Why aren't you telling the government? He went, I've been telling the government for 10 years. The reason I've gone in front of cameras is because they aren't listening.
Maybe they want it.
Possibly. I would, okay, so there might be 2 groups that want it. Or rather, there might be one group that wants it, one group that doesn't. I genuinely think that we are run by, yes, demented ideological socialists, but also total crippling midwits. There's an interview with Keir Starmer where he says, I don't have a favorite book and I don't dream. I don't think the man has an eternal monologue. He says he doesn't dream. It's in The Guardian, genuinely. There's look up Keir Starmer doesn't dream, and it was. He
doesn't read either. It's even worse.
Yeah, well, quite. He's also denounced a speech that he gave fairly recently where he said Britain's becoming an island of strangers. It's the only time he was remotely sensible, and he said, "Oh, I didn't read what was written on the cue cards for me." He's like, he's just Ron Burgundy running our country. But there is a group that definitely wants some kind of conflict. And
wow, he doesn't dream.
Yeah, he probably has an IQ of about 100.
Should we have like You've got to, if you want to be president, they do that thing where they ask you to look on the chart of what an apple looks like in your mind.
Yes.
And then you've got to if you select anything below like at least 5 or 4, it's just like, I'm sorry, you're ineligible.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Civil War talk. It's not surprising because it's like if you have an entire, Carl Benjamin said over and over again, like the Englishman is actually maybe possibly even more conservative than the median American. And it's like if you have a huge contingent of the population who's very angry and they don't have a population that represents them, or sorry, a party that represents them, like what do you think is going to happen?
So this one. Just you bring them in and say, congratulations, you want to file to run for office. Tell me, when you visualize an apple, which number do you see? And Keir Starmer goes, 5. And it's like, okay, well, you are ineligible. And we can be nice and say 1 through 4 is okay, but 5 isn't.
Do you think you could pass the breakfast test?
I suppose people get upset, though, because they're like, what is it called? It's aphantasia. Is that what it is? When you can't visualize something in your mind? Well, I don't know, man.
He literally wrote the textbook on how to apply human rights law that was passed under Tony Blair to block deportations. He once, I think it was in 1988, he told a socialist newspaper that all immigration law is underwritten by racism. And then we wonder why we're just importing millions of dependent third worlders.
What if there are literal demons? You know, because we talk about mass formation psychosis. I'm somewhat being facetious, but sometimes I look at the zombification of people. Like we were talking with Naomi Best earlier, and she's the story of being struggle sessioned and people saying, you're making us unsafe. And I'm like, are those demons? Like, are these zombies? Are these people conscious, reasoning individuals?
There was a book written by one of the Vatican's lead exorcists where he says that people are primed for demonic possession when they're in a state of faithlessness and chronic vice. And so if you're in a civilization that is godless, addicted to drugs, constantly consuming slop on television, and has nothing to believe in but ideological politics, well, I might think they might be empty vessels. You might be able to convince me that your average
NPC.
Antifa protest
It's
is like a
quaint that you
gathering
said
of legion.
television and left this out of it.
Well, yeah, this is quite the Black Mirror, but
Yep.
but the only so I am very tech skeptic. The only beneficial thing about this, though, is that this is what's turning a hell of a lot of young men right wing, especially video content, because you cannot deny the downsides of diversity if you are seeing it put in front of you all the time. And this is why our government is obsessed with what Douglas Murray calls second order concerns. They're obsessed with controlling speech online about the thing rather than addressing the actual thing itself. So there's a new independent commission on community and cohesion. It's meant to be like an independent group. It's a state front, right?
Well, finish.
So they've got there, and they're meant to be investigating the causes of civil conflict, riots, and upset about immigration. And what's their preformed conclusion? Well, there's too much Islamophobia online, so we've got to censor it.
Second, what do you call it? Second order?
Second order effects.
But that makes sense from the analogy that I use. I say that we are chickens in a chicken coop. And it's meant to be somewhat silly, but the general idea is, I got a chicken coop. I don't care what they do every day, as long as they make eggs. If at any point there is some kind of tumult, I'm going to say, stop the tumult. I want the eggs. I don't care why they're fighting. I want them to stop fighting. So in this regard, they're saying, I don't care what their problems are. I want them not to know about it. So the famous quote from Harriet Tubman, I've freed many slaves. I would have freed many more if only they knew they were slaves. It's an interesting quote, but when you expand what it means psychologically, it's that if people can't conceptualize of something, it doesn't exist to them. Perception is reality. So if they're saying, look, we've got a bunch of young men that are seeing this problem, is there a way by which we can reduce their ability to communicate to each other so they can't have an organized front? Then the problem is solved. To the farmer, your government, with its chickens, its subjects, it doesn't care why they're mad. Just, you know what we do? This is a really great example, actually. The chickens fight. And they'll have their feathers pulled out, and it causes them stress. And when they're stressed, they don't lay. So you know what we do? We put blinders on their faces. And then they walk around, and they can't see anything, and they're going like this half the time, and they can't peck each other. We have not solved the reason for the fighting. We've just removed the information from them. And that's exactly what they're doing.
We have an entire department dedicated to this in the Home Office, by the way. It's called RICU, R-I-C-U. I call it the Don't Look Back in Anger department. So I'm not joking about that. Whenever there's a terrorist attack in the UK, the government controls the front page of newspapers. They tell them what to run to ensure that the public do not blame Muslims for it.
But to your point, that's exactly why I think the phones are amazing. I think we got into this point, you know, Tim, to your point, like zombies. We kind of like got into this zombie sleepwalking space during, say, like the 90s, the early 2000s. And it's not like you couldn't say your own thoughts, but when basically there was one narrative being put out on all of the networks and there was no, independent media, no way to just, get on your live stream and say things, then we developed this groupthink. We were talking about this earlier. One of the big ingredients of groupthink is self-censorship and the illusion of unanimity. And the more that you believe that you're the only one who thinks something, the less likely you are to speak up and say something different. And then the more that you conform your behavior to fit into what you think is the unanimity that you live in, the more you start to mentally conform to that as well. And so you're absolutely right. I think that, the independent media is making the establishment extremely uncomfortable. I think it's a huge threat in a really good way. And Tim, just one more thing I want to say to your point about demons. I know you were kind of like kidding about that, but
Half kidding.
I'm not sure he is.
It's an interesting little thing I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but in the Bible, are you familiar with I am legion for we are many?
Remind me.
Yeah, so there's this man, and he's supposed to be like the town crazy man. And I'm going to get the story probably not exactly right, so feel free to correct me in the chat. But basically, Jesus comes to him and says, basically, like, what's going on with you? And the man says, I am legion for we are many. And a lot of people point at that and say, okay, that's like some weird pronoun stuff there, right? Like when people start getting confused about we, me, they, referring to themselves in these ways. And so then Jesus basically says, demons, leave this man and go into those pigs. And then the pigs run off the edge of the cliff and die, and the man is fine. So that's the I am Legion for We Are Many story.
I believe in God, and I don't know beyond that what I believe, but I certainly believe I have witnessed things that I don't believe are adequately explained by modern science, which I don't immediately take to mean as magic. I just take it to mean something I don't yet understand or can explain. And I think when people say things like, I don't believe in demons, that's hokey pokey nonsense, my response is, could there be other dimensions? Could there be a different way to explain the concept of demons in a more secular and scientific way? In which case, the argument is we have simply not yet been able to discover or discern what kind of entities and forces exist out there.
Forms of energy,
whatever it might be. And the idea that humans have discovered everything is silly. The discovery of the charged electromagnetic spectrum rewrote how we saw reality. And then we were like, holy crap. The discovery of air, thousands of years ago. So I have witnessed things recently that I would describe as paranormal. But when I say paranormal, I mean, we don't just have a means of explaining it, but certainly humans have experienced enough of this stuff, and it's been written about, that while some of it certainly is made up, stupid, hokey BS, there are legitimate claims and cases of honest, rational human beings who have experienced something that isn't reasonably explained by what we know in science. Now, you can also take a look at the stories of pilots who say there's one recent story where a guy said he was flying a plane and an orb floated to the left of his plane and seemed to lock to the plane so that when he banked left, it moved perfectly with the plane. There's tons of stories of rational pilots saying, not only did I see it, radar picked it up and that guy saw it too. So when I say things like demons, possession, mind control, I think there is a strong possibility that these things actually exist. And I try to rationally explain how it is. The first time I experienced the mass formation psychosis, I had worked at Vice, made a bunch of friends. We went around traveling the world covering the news. We would then come back and produce a video and publish it. A couple years after that, probably about 2 years after leaving Vice, I said, I am going to go to Sweden. And I got messages from people from Vice saying, don't do it. People I'd gone to reports and field reporting with. And I said, why not? I'm doing literally what I've always done. And they said, because Trump is wrong, so don't go. Oh. And I said, I agree Trump is wrong, and I'm going to go prove him wrong. And they said, no, it's not worth it because you're going to prove him right. And I was like, wait, dude. I was like, you and I used to go and cover these things. I'm doing the exact same thing. And they were like, yeah, but Trump is bad and it's white supremacy, so you can't do it. I got like 4 or 5 messages from Vice reporters saying, do not go. Give the money to a Muslim refugee resettlement thing. A couple people said that, and I was just like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Then they started calling me a white supremacist. And I'm like, how did in 2 years, people that had an entire worldview nearly identical to mine turn into whatever this zombie is?
Social contagion.
Within 2 years, their entire worldview rewritten? Blew my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see the demonic hold firsthand when you watch these pro-abortion activists celebrate having multiple abortions. You can't explain that without demonic intervention. I mean, this is a country that's sacrificed 60 million unborn children onto the altar of the system. Like, how do you explain that without some sort of demonic hold, demonic possession, whatever that demonic is maybe subjective. But
I think Trump has uniquely provoked this because nobody before him triggered the underlying philosophy that actually united both sides of the political spectrum, which again is very much the belief in the blank slate, that all human beings are infinitely fungible. Like, this is, do you remember when George W. Bush, not long after 9/11, gave a speech and he said, I don't understand why they hate us. Islam is a religion of peace. It's like, you idiot. You still think that everyone fundamentally wants the same thing. Recognizing differences is anathema to the ruling political order. And so when Trump gets up and goes, yeah, sorry, no, not all illegal immigrants are good people just wanting a better life. Some of them are rapists and criminals. Yeah, some Muslims are terrorists, and we're just going to have to trade off and just not do that. Yeah, turns out that importing loads of Somalians to Sweden recreates Mogadishu. Who knew? That just upsets their liberal sensibilities, and so they out themselves to you.
I mean, you have people that have, this is a generations long project, this neoliberal world order, and you have a guy coming along that promises to destroy it. Like, your response would be supernatural to seeing that happen.
It turns out the ultimate weakness of the liberal world order was just noticing patterns.
Yeah, go figure, right?
Well, it is interesting, too, that I feel like Christianity is probably alongside Judaism, is a religion that it's like you have free license in our society sometimes to pick on it, right? Like we see comedians or newspapers or whatever just talk about Christians and often Jews in such a disparaging way. And I'm like, I dare you to say that about Muhammad. I dare you to say that about Islam.
They're afraid about threats to their life. I will say, though, and I don't really have any antagonism against Jewish people. I've got Jewish friends. Shock. I'm in politics. It happens. It's not cost-free to criticize Judaism. Of course, there is absolutely... I could only describe it as like third world brained Jew-spurging that goes out a hell of a lot, especially after October the 7th. Like, a lot of this stuff is just amplified by demented Pakistani bot accounts and things like that. But it is very telling, I will say, that the Trump administration has turned around and said, we're going to denaturalize certain citizens that are not compatible with our country. And one of the criteria was anti-Semitism. Now, it's not necessarily just like hating America is not enough. It is that you specifically hate American Jews. Now, again, I think anti-Semitism shouldn't be done. Fair. It shows that like anti-Semitism still is a powerful taboo post-war for understandable reasons, in a way that picking on Christianity does not publicly penalize you, even though the GOP itself is a Christian party.
Yeah,
Denaturalize?
Yeah, they said that they will remove the citizenship from certain people. Yeah.
Is there any cases of that? Has anybody been denaturalized?
In the U.S.?
Yeah.
One so far. There's probably been many. But there has been one recently. It was someone from the UK who was a child pornographer.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Carl Benjamin, and he goes,
"You can keep him."
That's what he said. And I said, no, this one's yours. You take him back.
They're also saying that they'll be doing this to people that have been proven to have lied on their citizenship application, which I think is perfectly valid.
Agreed.
If you lied on your citizenship application and you wouldn't have been accepted, and then that is discovered, I think it should invalidate your citizenship. I don't think there should be anything controversial about that, except I guess apparently I think there's some, I don't know if this is, I'm not sure how much of a case there is for this, but apparently this is being discussed regarding Mamdani.
Yes, I heard this.
So yeah, I mean, I know he lied, I guess, in certain situations.
Well, apparently the accusation was that before he'd become a fully naturalized citizen, he had praised Hamas, and obviously they're a prescribed terrorist group.
And then he denied having had any affiliations with any, such groups or, something. I don't know all of the details, but he's one prominent case, I guess, where that type of denaturalization could potentially come into play.
I'm thinking about the way that Christianity has become the brunt of jokes and the way it's so common. And my instinct is, as a time traveler, and I'm old enough that I've been through many, many incarnations of history, they did themselves no favor by starting to mandate or proselytize in terms of how people should be living their lives. They were the ones that did that first. Now the left's doing it. There was conservative religious right that was perceived, at least, as judging other people and telling them how they should be living.
That's true.
Americans hate that. And now the other side is doing it.
Don't you think that the conservative Christian right ended up being right about everything?
I'm not judging right or wrong. It's just that in terms of telling people, feeling intrusively, like trying, it's again, this we talked about earlier today, this instinct to have a totalitarian sort of intrusion into people's lives. We should be more libertarian.
No, but on the other hand, what I thought you were also going to say is that the Christians didn't do themselves any favors because they didn't ever stand up for their faith. On the other hand, they also were extremely tolerant of people to make fun of Christians. A lot of people said, like, well, I'm too, cool for that. It's not intellectual, whatever. So I hear you. I think in a weird way, both things are true. Like there was a side of Christian culture that was dominant and judgmental and exclusionary. And then there maybe as like a reaction to that, there became a large swath of Christianity that became almost self-loathing.
And we're both clear that people need a spiritual life and need a concept of something bigger than themselves and really are missing out on faith in terms of their mental health.
Yeah.
We brought that up earlier.
Yeah.
And so we are that, but when it aligns politically, it's the political alignment that I think was the problem.
I don't think it's necessarily the political alignment. I think that the consequences of the mainly sexual revolution they were rallying against were not
sexual revolution.
Yeah, they were not manifestly bad enough to vindicate the Christian conservatives of the 90s.
What do you mean?
So, okay, you did not need a strong Christian conservative revivalist movement as you saw in the 90s before the 60s. It's only in the period between the 60s and the 90s when all sexual norms are destroyed, abortion is liberalized, hookup culture becomes ubiquitous, and vice is celebrated, that suddenly the Christian conservatives have political backlash. And back then it looked fuddy-duddy and out of date.
Yes,
It looked like
yes,
you were incurring
it
on
did.
people because of the delivery mechanism. Now, my generation's hungering for it because very few families are being formed, transsexualism is in the schools, and millions of babies are being killed.
So I was part of that pushback, and we did not intend this.
Yeah.
This is not what we were intending at all. We were more interested in sort of what's real. Like what is real about the human experience, and we felt like it was shrouded behind all kinds of ideologies then, or Latin phrases. You couldn't call something an STD. It was a venereal disease. Everything was all very it was taken away from the real human experience. We wanted real. That was a lot of the pushback, and we did not expect this. This is not at all what we were.
I mean, me and him were both Gen Z. Like I think from our Zoomers, I think from our perspective, the big-haired church ladies weren't harsh enough because I think they saw, like the Kitty Dukakis saw the guillotine hanging, and that's why they were so over the top, was because they saw what was coming.
I was there, and I will tell you, God, it's complicated because it felt. We were casting off the yoke of a generation, and they were the last vestiges of that did not understand us and didn't understand the world we were living in. That was it. Mm-hmm. And to the extent that sexuality was something that we wanted freedom with, we didn't want to act out in crazy ways. We wanted to not be judged for it. We did not want to be condemned for talking about it. Our music reflected it. The music was crazy, though. I mean, look at the music from the 70s. It's about having sex with 15-year-olds.
You get
a lot of it.
More of what you tolerate, I'm afraid. So even if you
again,
wanted to be non-judgmental, you were opening the door to those.
Listen, I understand. I'm happy you're craving the church lady back. I mean, I think that's a good impulse. Just be careful what you wish for. Like us, we did not intend this.
Well, I just think from our perspective, it's like you can't ratchet back a system to an earlier point and not expect a similar outcome.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can freeze liberalism at a certain point and
You
just
can't
stay
rewind
there.
the revolution and consolidate its gains. It has to be all undone.
And again, like I wasn't there, so this is me off of my reading of
Yeah.
history. But to me, it doesn't seem likely that we could just like go back to the 80s and freeze there. Because what I'm seeing now, you could see the seeds in the.
So
70s.
what is your prescription? What is it?
Well, I guess
Bin off the sexual revolution.
Is
Yeah.
what?
Bin off the sexual revolution.
I guess in short, just
Scrap birth control, scrap no-fault divorce. There should be a lot more sexual shame for weird kinks that you shouldn't be celebrating in public. And turns out, actually, that what you do behind closed doors does affect your personal
Yeah. So let me tell you one of the main weaknesses in the sexual revolution that you may not be aware of. It was perpetrated by adults in the 60s and 70s with no understanding that it would have an impact on adolescents. None. When I went on the radio to talk to adolescents about their sexual behavior, what I heard from my superiors in the previous generation was, why would you talk to them about STDs and AIDS? They don't need to know about that. Why would you even discuss that? There's something wrong with you. That's what I was told. I was told by my residency director that I was sick and there was something wrong with me, that I would discuss sexuality with an 18-year-old. They don't need to know this. That's really where things went off the rail, was the full impact of the sexual revolution. And by the way, it was all based on biology. We had antibiotics for STDs and we had birth control pills. That's what unleashed it.
Do you know the background of Dr. Drew? He may not know. So, have you ever heard of the show Loveline?
I have not.
He would
Okay.
know. He would know.
So, like,
He was at Eton at the time.
in the 80s, I was like 12 years old listening to Dr. Drew on Loveline, like in my bedroom. And I was like, he would always be talking, as he said, about like, maybe sexual things that like
But I was not advocating sexual freedom. I was saying understand the reality, the consequences of your choices. And we ended up talking a lot about childhood trauma, which was also we went through a pandemic of that in 80s and 90s, and it was emerging in the relationships. We were hearing about it every night.
What year did it start?
84.
Wow.
83.
What year did it end?
God, about 7 years ago or so, something like that. I did 35
really?
years. 35 years.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
What would you think?
Oh, I don't know. I assumed somewhere in like the early thousands or something. I had no
it
idea.
wasn't that long ago.
I mean, when I was probably like 14, 15, it was Q101 every night.
Oh yeah, Chicago. It was a
Yes,
great
right.
station.
Yep. And but I largely remember it as responsible. You were advocating
Information.
safety, security.
Yeah. Biological reality was my thing, and healthy choices and consequences. But we wanted the freedom to discuss it.
You were
That was
telling people not to do bad things.
Yes, that's weird. Really what it was, the consequences of bad choices. We were listening to little cases where they'd made bad choices, and I was sort of explicating them. And I never would have imagined this is where it all went. Not in a million years.
Do you think there was a point where maybe you and people online, if you took a stance on a position that you regret at this point, that it went a different direction than you expected it to?
Lots of things. I mean, here we are.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just kidding. Like, I was born in the Bush administration, so I don't know what the world was like before everything changed. I was born in, I was 14 when Trump got nominated. So like,
Wow.
this is the world that I've come into and inherited.
Well, that's
It's been
why
like this.
you're a bit of an oracle. How about you? Was it?
1998.
Yeah. So you
01,
guys are oracles to me. Like I want to know.
Well, and vice versa. Cause,
Yeah. Please learn from me. I'm a time traveler.
Well, we come with like a lot of like my generation, we do have a lot of, I guess, resentfulness, I suppose, to like older folks, because we do feel like we inherited a mess. But then when I speak to older people, they're like, no, I was there on those issues. And so.
And not only that, we inherited a mess. And
Yeah.
we were busy, again, like I said, casting off a yoke of a generation that thought a lot of itself and actually had a lot to offer. We just didn't know it.
Yeah.
We were busy canceling it all.
Because it does feel like, from my perspective, that like maybe the older generations did destroy a system that was actually did pretty well for like human flourishment to some
They
degree.
broke a chain in the great links of civilization, definitely. And it feels like we have actually inherited far less cultural wisdom than our predecessors, and that's why there's a real.
Be more
anger.
specific.
So, for example, let's talk about relationships. I think it's about a third of young men 18 to 30 have never had one.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The
It's
virgins
horrible.
all through
This
that.
is a horrible, horrible thing.
Yeah, and the reason it's been outsourced to things like dating apps, and I've been very anti-dating app despite
Pornography is really what's taken over.
quite, yeah. There's also weirdly the internet. There was a piece in the Atlantic quite a while ago about the Gen Z sex recession, and they mapped internet rollout, and you saw the decline of teenage pregnancy with that, because obviously people are just staying at home and not even having real life interactions. But yeah. Porn's terrible. Again, another product of the sexual revolution and the treatment of consumers. Like, whatever you just do in the privacy of your own bedroom is totally fine. It doesn't have societal effects. But also, dating apps are particularly pernicious. And full disclosure, after railing against dating apps, I then met my wife on one. Oops. However, most people don't. And this is why people are having fewer relationships, because dating and courtship was something that the elders once did on behalf of their children. There's very little stewardship now. Instead, it's just a consumer experience. Yet again, like the old generation has shirked its responsibility to help younger people couple up.
Well, we had this conversation on the way over here. I've been advocating since the early 90s to bring back dating, but come up with a new word for it, because dating you could not even use that word without being just like, get out of here. Courtship, forget that word. That was not even a possibility. And when I started talking about it, the Independent Women's Forum had put out a study on college women. They were all miserable. Well, then they went back and said, why? They perceived they had 4 options socially: random hookup, friends with benefits, which, as someone yelled out to me at a college event, I said, that looks good on paper, but it doesn't work good. And then somebody yelled out, so does communism. I thought, you got it. And then the other was to get joined at the hip, these rapidly developing relationships with somebody you don't even know if you want to be with, but it's a refuge. It's a life preserver.
Well, I think one of the challenges is throughout human history, The children who ended up getting married lived in the same town their whole lives, where their lives were the exact same as their grandparents. They likely knew each other from a very young age and got married at what we would describe as a relatively young age, maybe 18, had kids in their early 20s. Now the issue is you've got women graduating college, 24, 25, or 26. They don't have men in their lives that they've known since they were young, and they're already adults. So what ends up happening is they meet people that they don't actually align with, and they're trying to form lifelong bonds with someone who has a dramatically different worldview and experience.
Well, also, I mean, as a woman, I can say it was an awful thing that we were instructed, and I think it's even still happening, that the worst thing we could do would be to get married before, finishing college, and probably best to at least wait till you're 30, and, to get married, young, it was like being like desperate or stupid. And then, I mean, at the same time, of course, like what were we supposed to live like nuns, until we're, 25, 30, whatever. And it was almost like, and I see this with women in New York all the time in my practice there, when I would see a ton of women, they would like confess to me like in this like secret way. I mean, talking to like, young, successful lawyer and banking associates, they'd be like, well, it's really weird, but like a part of me just wants to get married and have kids. I don't like want to be doing this. But then it's like they've gone so far down this road. They have $100,000 in student debt. They have this whole, life and identity built around it. I think it was just super confusing for a lot of people. But I mean, I think at least now we're finally talking about it again. I mean, for me, again, this whole thing with the mental health benefits of free speech is so important, because I felt, and like these women I'm describing in my office felt, like you couldn't even just come out and say this publicly, or it would be like just some deep shame.
I think a lot of that resentment that you mentioned comes from feeling that we've had freedom foisted upon us that we didn't technically want.
Yeah.
Like those generations before, they grew up in a small town, they had a close network of family around them, so they had a life plan set out before them. They didn't necessarily need to question it was fulfilling. Now, what you have to do, if you're told you can't get married by you're 30, you've got to go to college, you've got to get this job, you've got a series of initiation rituals that are all about you as a producer and a consumer, and not an inextricable member of a family and a tribe. And what that means is, at some stage in there, a family and a child and a loving relationship has to be rationally planned. Like, you have to make time for that family. Rather than invite it into your life as an unexpected joy, you've got to go, right, I've got to get all my financial ducks in order. My spouse has to get all their financial ducks in order. We have to be perfectly compatible. We have to have some sort of housing stability. We have to brace ourselves for if the government screws up the economy, or, COVID strikes or whatever again. And then at some point, we have to take time out of our very individuated lives to come together, sacrifice some money, and have a child. And none of our friends have children, so we don't know the value of it. We don't know where we start. And I think that's quite a source of resentment. We've been cut off from the traditions that just made life easy and predictable.
Yeah, I mean, like, even at the micro level, the freedom has become paralyzing, like with the dating app, where you're in charge of picking exact, like, filters for who you want. I mean, that's completely paralyzing. Where my great-grandparents, like, they met at a grocery store. She was the cashier. He was the customer. Like, I'd actually rather not have the freedom, or, like, your environment produces.
Too many choices.
Do you know what would fix that? User reviews.
Yeah.
If we're going to turn ourselves into an Amazon product listing, we might as well have user reviews.
I think the future is going to be dudes are going to get female robots, women are going to get male robots, and then they're going to be AI programmed to be the perfect personality for companionship. And then when people want children, it'll be just like a marketplace of exchanging genetic material. Well, it's already happening.
It's better than the alternative.
It's already
now.
happening.
Like, I've been in 2 of my friends' weddings, and you're noticing this new thing where men bawl when the wife comes down the altar. And I think what's going on there is because they realize how much of a miracle marriage is in 2025. Or because they're whiny little babies. It could be, but I think, like, it's just something that shouldn't be taken for granted in today's society, and it's like this serious mountain that to find a spouse is like a feat today.
I'm really worried about your generation. I feel so horrible that you're suffering with all this stuff, and there's so many different layers to it.
They're gonna have sexy robots, so and the robots can look like whoever you want.
Wow.
You guys got to start writing screenplays because
No, but
this dystopian realities.
This is already happening. There are women who go on Facebook for the sperm marketplace. It's actually happening. And they say, you know, I'm looking for a guy for a wham bam thank you man, ma'am, just want to have a kid. Don't want to know your name. Don't want to even see your face. Just come in, do the deed and leave. And there are guys like, yep.
I'm in the wrong business.
I don't know if that business is doing anything good for anybody.
Well, women are doing a egg quote donation,
Yeah.
like which comes with like a lot of reimbursements,
Yeah.
you know, for your donation.
Donating for $5,000.
Did you
Oh,
see
a lot
the
more than
20,000,
that.
yeah.
Did you see the guy who cried when his AI female assistant died?
Yes.
She reached the GPT text limit of like 100,000 characters and then just reset, and he cried. And then he asked her, he made a new one and asked it to marry him and said yes.
He was also married.
Indeed.
Yeah. So I feel like his actual marriage is being neglected somewhat.
Well, that's the really interesting question I had about that guy was, is the wife going to feel betrayal? Is she going to experience like real betrayal because of this machine?
What happens when he can buy an animatronic? So with the Optimus bots, and not just Optimus, but the Boston Dynamics, all it's going to take is proper skinning of the machines, and they will move around. So maybe in 10 years they'll look just like humans and move just like humans. Already actually, I'll put it this way: I think once we get in the next couple of years more advanced AI, the rapid development of the technology will be profound and indescribable, to the point where we have the humanoid robots dancing and stuff, but that's stamp collecting. Once we get advanced AI, it will draw the schematics for us in ways that it would take us a long time to produce.
But we have deep, hardwired evolutionary, wiring. I think that like a heat-seeking missile, I think that we know that that's not a person. It might satisfy you for a night. I don't know, but
yes.
I think we need and want that quote real person. I can't believe we have to even.
Yeah. Yes, but you're also talking about humans who take the path of least resistance. And you're going to say, for $9.95 per month, your subscription to Janet is guaranteed, or good luck on Tinder. And they're going to be like, well, I'll get Janet and then try and do Tinder. And guess what? Tinder will never work.
Not just that, but you're also saying that applying to a generation whose sexual norms are normal. Don't forget, you're talking to a generation of especially boys, but increasingly girls, who from age 8 have seen thousands of porn videos.
Yeah.
Yep.
All of their sexual
crazy
norms
porn videos.
Yeah, all their sexual norms for a decade are this person's a commodity that is on demand.
Yep.
That's how they think of relationships. They don't think of one as give and take and love and affection and negotiation. Freya India wrote a really good Substack on this recently. She writes for Jonathan Haidt quite frequently. And there's a good passage in it where she said, basically, our generation have been lumped with the sort of the sexual freedoms presented to previous generations as something wonderful and celebratory. The predatory porn companies have targeted us to be lifelong consumers. They have faced no backlash from governments of age verification materials because mainly adults want to consume anonymously without it being encumbered. And we have seen this for decades. And then we are told when we enter the marketplace of dating to expect love and affection and openness and vulnerability from us. It's like, well, you've basically pried an entire generation free from all of the old romantic feelings.
I hear you, but biology is, I think, and I don't know, I'm just guessing, but I think, Mother Nature is bigger and stronger and will ultimately override.
I hope so.
I mean, people that
birth
saw
rates don't
prostitutes in the old days still had relationships.
Yeah, but
Pornography
they couldn't live with the prostitute, and the prostitute wasn't on demand, and there was a significant cost barrier.
And
Like
also,
it wasn't just a dopamine button that could.
Although the
like
French
the
managed to do that for a long period of time.
And the
they just called it libertinism. Put a nice name on it.
Well, the pernicious thing with pornography too is like once the person is, not to get graphic, but finished with the pornography, they just turn it off.
Yeah.
So it's completely eliminating the
work.
the responsibility you have to your partner after you're you're finished. And so it's like completely warped everybody's perception of intimacy. And society is reflecting this. Suicide rates have never been higher. The birth rate's never been lower. Like I do agree that there is that biological impulse, but I wouldn't underrate the ability for technology and these sorts of effects to make you forget what intimacy ever was.
Right. But in
Coy,
those-
you and I were talking earlier how there's not enough research on exactly what he's describing. That's why he's an oracle.
Right.
We need more of that
The
information.
problem with getting more of it is that I think it's a guy who runs a website called Your Brain on Porn and does research into this, and he says he's tried to find control groups and he can't.
Yeah.
You can't find enough young men to participate.
Even North
But
Korea.
porn is different from what you guys are describing because, to your point, when a person is engaging with porn, they typically are only going to be viewing it in moments of intense arousal. And then when it's done, as you said, they click it off, and sometimes they might feel shame or whatever, but they move on with their day and they pretty much forget about it till next time they're going to use the porn
don't.
again.
Not yay.
Unless they get
But
addicted.
but when you have an actual robot sitting there, then you have to sit there in your normal day-to-day life looking at the robot, and some part of you, I think, would say, what the hell am I doing?
I don't
You
think
know
so.
what I mean?
I think so.
No?
There was an app they released that was like AI chatbot friends or girlfriends, and immediately all the dudes started using it to sext, and so the company said we're shutting this down, causing a user revolt, and then they were like, okay, we're turning it back on, but only for people who are you're gonna be grandfathered in to be able to send sex messages to a robot that you know is a robot, and it's just words, and then. I think that was for like a year. I think recently they announced they were turning it back on because what happens is if you look at OnlyFans, the intention of OnlyFans was supposed to be a website where creators, podcasters, musicians could make bonus content for fans. Porn took over, and the CEO tried shutting it down. And then the company started spiraling and going under. So the investors are like, yo, hey, we'd rather be rich. So we turned it back on. My understanding, I could be wrong, is that this AI girlfriend app turned sex back on. These people are not doing this. These are guys, and it's really simple. 26-year-old guy, and he says, I will take fake love and lust over nothing. And so they'll take it. So they're going to have robo-girlfriends, and they're gonna feel somewhat bad probably, but they'll feel better than without it. And they're going to be like, and women are going to do the same thing. Women are going to have gigantic, tall, dark, and handsome, robo dudes.
It's not even a rational choice as well. It's just hacking your biology because it's saying, right, I have paid a woman, she is talking to me and showing interest in me, and therefore I will emotionally invest in this thing, even though I can delude myself into thinking it's not necessarily real. And on the porn point, it's not as simple as they use it, they shut off, they get their kicks. It becomes not only an obsession and an entire internet subculture, but there are guys that use it to self-soothe their anxiety, which itself is caused by the porn. So it just becomes like a perpetual spiral.
Well, I'll admit, I have had what have felt like oddly meaningful chats with ChatGPT. Not about anything intimate.
Ouija board.
But the voice feature is pretty incredible. So maybe you guys are right. I don't know.
And you can already, so a couple years ago, we've been bringing this up quite a bit in the past week, but they modded Skyrim so that the female companion can talk to you in any way you want. You can literally say, what's your name? Where are you from? How old are you? Where do you want to go right now? And it will respond with procedurally generated, anything. I think my prediction is that right now, if someone wanted, I'm going to say this. You want to be a billionaire? Anybody want to be a billionaire? Okay, here's what you do. You're going to make a video game, which is like Skyrim, and you're going to create the ability to have companions that are using the GPT API. Probably use Grok. You can probably use any of them. And that way they talk to you. You will say, you create the character profile, and then you will have a customized character in your third person or first person adventure like Skyrim. And it's always online. So when you're at work and you have, let's say you're playing a game like Skyrim or Fallout, and in Fallout you can plant vegetables. You'd be in the middle of work, you'd be in a lunch break, and you go, hold on a second, I make a phone call. Sarah, can you harvest the watermelon? Yeah, because I'm going to be back early today. Yeah. Well, we'll replant the watermelon, and we'll get more. Oh, sorry, that was my video game girlfriend. She's harvesting my watermelon. I can sell it to the merchant, but I have to go fight the dragon later, so I figured I just call him and get it done. That game could be made right now, and people will have digital girlfriends that they spend time with. They call and they say, hey, I'm going to be back from work at 5 p.m. Do you want to get my sword ready for when I go fight the dragon? Yeah, I'll have it by the front of the front door. And then you get there, you turn the game on, and she's standing there holding your sword.
Well, I'll say making money off of the Tate, or making money off of desperation of men would be very fitting of the Tate name. There's a long legacy of this, of Tate's doing this.
I was going to say, if you use Grok, it can't be Skyrim. It has to be Wolfenstein.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to lay this on
Mecca Hitler
women,
is your girlfriend?
but they need to be nicer to men and start to understand how sensitive men are and how much they need the companionship of women. And right now, men are sort of commoditized by women. He's got to be over 6 feet tall. Got to be this. Got to be that. My
6'6", they say.
My checklist.
Oh, I feel so bad.
And
for men
and then
these
they go, "Where are the
days.
men? What's going
Well,
on
this
here?"
this is why you're getting the red pill stuff.
Yeah.
There was a viral post recently where a woman said that a good friend of hers fell into the red pill, and now he's cock blocking himself. And I thought that was the funniest response. Not that I completely agree with how the red pill people handle things, but it was clear what she was saying and was going to be weaponized by the red pill people, and that he was cock blocking himself, because one of their arguments is women control men through sex, and by him choosing an alternate ideology to better himself, they would no longer give him that sex, and they're angry now that they can't use it to gain things from him.
I got to tell you, when I first saw a lot of the woke movement and the men that were participating in it, I was like, those guys are doing it because they want to
wanna get
impress
laid.
these women. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Why
it's
they're
it's
doing it.
got
And then
it became
sneaky effers.
Sneaky effers is the biological term.
Yeah, there was a piece in the New York Times about a week or so ago that was basically like, where have all the good men gone? I see these really successful women sitting alone eating at restaurants, and they desperately want to be married. And it's just like, yeah, okay, you got a twofold problem here. One, you have no need for a man in your life in that sense. Like you are the man that you wanted to net. You're a high-flying, successful career woman surrounded by women almost exclusively. You haven't probably had a positive social interaction with a man in many years because you've been poisoned by feminism in all the major institutions. How are you going to let him into your life? And also in terms of men, yeah, it's not necessarily sensitivity, I would say.
We're more sensitive than women give us credit for. Yeah.
I think men in relationships want to be respected. And
Oh,
the
for sure.
problem is-
We want to be valued. We want to be.
you want to have a sort of irreplaceable instrumental value, and the problem is the way that the state is set up to basically exculpate irresponsible women of the consequences of their choices, especially if they have multiple children by multiple men. Men just aren't respected. They're treated as a kind of tax cattle to pick up after the fact that lots of irresponsible women don't want to pay for their own lifestyles. So until you fix that fundamental relationship, I don't think you're going to fix the relationship between the sexes.
Yeah, and like something he's hitting on is like I've seen this at churches is on Father's Day where men really crave respect and meaning. They'll get up there and it's like for their Father's Day presentation, they're just like, "You guys are so valuable. We're so grateful for you guys." Like they gush over them. And I'm like, but men don't respond to that. Men respond to responsibility, and they want to have a place in a irreplaceable place in a family's life. They don't need to be like affirmed. They need to be given responsibility.
Yes. Action.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I think men are put in a terrible position. I
Young
was
men.
I was in the PragerU documentary about toxic masculinity, and just, like, as you know as well, the American Psychological Association came out with these horrible guidelines about, men and boys. And yeah, I mean, like if they ask a woman out, like they could be labeled as a creep, but if they don't ask her out, then they're labeled as weak, and it's awful because you're right. Like it's women that are doing this, but the women, as you said, they also ultimately end up just extremely lonely. And the same thing I was saying earlier about like
They end up
being-
angry.
Yeah,
The
they
men
do.
end up lonely.
They do. I mean, you were saying as well about Independent Women's Forum that did a study of all these, quote, successful women and what they had in common. was that
I
they
shared
were-
a podium with a woman in the mid-'90s who went out to write a book about the most successful women in America and try to figure. She said in her mind she wanted to know what they all had in common. So it was name they may not know, Diane Sawyer and Oprah and just multiple, like it was about 12, I think, women that really were just extremely well respected public figures. And she said, I could find nothing in common with any of them except one thing. They all were childless and were pissed, really pissed, because they were told they could do anything whenever they wanted to and just
Don't need no man.
Don't need men, whatever, do
Yeah,
it when you're ready. And
There was that woman on the cover of some magazine where she's like, I froze my eggs, I'm going to have it all. And then a couple years later, the eggs were all destroyed and she couldn't have kids. And she said she screamed like a wild animal.
I bet.
I just want to, I'm going to embarrass my wife because we just had our first kid. We were hanging out. I did tell the story before, and she laughed when I said I told this story on the show. But we were sitting on the couch watching The Five, as we do. And she's looking down at our baby and started crying. And I looked over and I was like, are you crying? And she's like, I just love her so much. And I'm like, man, to think that there are women out there who are told not to do this, That is terrifying.
You're just making mine broody. I'm not going to hear the end of that story.
It drives me
Hey, like-
nuts when they say like, well, I wanted more, you know, like as if like being a mom and a wife is like, then having a career is like more, you know, I'm like, well, what do you mean? by
Extending
that?
your bloodline. That's
So
beautiful.
for chickens, for those that don't know, they get broody. Okay,
You get what?
broody.
Broody.
And so what'll happen is they'll lay and you never. It's hard to know exactly when different breeds do it at different times. Some are hard to do. Silkies kind of do it all the time. And so they'll lay a clutch of eggs. If it gets to a certain number, they will not get up. Unfortunately, sometimes we just had a chicken, and the eggs were no good, and so she's refusing to get up. So what do? You go to the store and you buy a couple chicks, and then in the middle of the night when she's sleeping, you lift her up and you put the chicks underneath her. And then the hen wakes up in the morning, hears peeping, and looks down, and you can tell, I know it may be silly, but these chickens have never been happier.
Aww.
Because now they get to have babies, even though it wasn't working. And then the babies follow them around, and they run together. And mama chicken, when you come near her babies, you know, I like chickens, by the way.
She thinks they're her own.
Yep.
That's so cute.
And otherwise, she won't get up, because that's how badly, you know.
Somewhere
the
in
babies.
that story is another one of your diabolical screenplays where women are being hoodwinked by technology in terms of believing they have kids that they don't have.
Aliens to make women happy,
There you go.
give them babies.
There you go.
I don't know.
That's what they do with cows. Is like if there's one cow with two calves and one cow with 4 calves, the cow with 2 calves is expecting 3. The one with 4 is expecting 3. So they take the 4th from the 3rd, cover it in the other cow's placenta, and then deliver it to the
wow.
cow. And she's like, "Oh, I had 3. This is great."
Wow. All right, we're going to go to your chats and Rumble Rants. So smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know, literally everybody. Is there a long lost aunt or something? Just call her up and say, yeah, we haven't talked in 20 years, but you should watch this show right now. All right, J.H. Wilder says we had another wacko threaten Trump today while he was in Kerrville, assisting the damage from the floods. It seems the left keeps getting more brazen and unhinged every day since Trump took office. Indeed, a guy got arrested for threatening to kill Trump. That's nuts, man.
Did you see during the ICE raid in California, the guys throwing bricks and
The guy shooting the gun?
and the guns? I mean, those people are felons. Why are they not being arrested?
They're hunting him now. It's a $50,000 reward for that guy. Okay. We had within 1 week 3 instances of shooting at cops. 2 of them, the one on the 4th of July was a coordinated militarized strike on an ICE facility that shot a cop in the neck. A guy hiding in the woods with a rifle. And then you had attack on a CBP facility where a guy ambushed him. And then you had this guy showing up at the ICE raid and unloading what looks like some kind of handgun. I think it's probably stupid to say, but I presume escalation.
And did you hear, though, what Mayor Karen Bass said just recently? She was asked about, something to do with, the riots recently, and she said the quote-unquote riots didn't happen.
Yeah, no riots.
Yeah,
There were no
that's
riots.
what she said, the quote-unquote riots that didn't happen. I mean, it's just, I sometimes have wondered, is it incompetence or malice? And in a situation like that, I mean...
Both.
It's both are just window dressing for anti-white racism. Genuinely, they just hate white people.
Misfit Brad says, makes you think the sexual revolution was encouraged that powerful men would stop getting blackmailed by women because if sex is viewed so loosely in society, there's no shame in it, even affairs.
Counterpoint, loads of politicians are gay. Doesn't matter.
By the way, you mentioned the anti-white. There's a new thing happening where you're not called white anymore. You're called European. That's the ultimate.
Is that an American thing?
I'm starting to hear that you're European, and I thought,
Are we Europeans?
and I started thinking that's a pretty big. I mean, I'm from like Eastern Europe. Is that the same thing? I don't know.
From Tennessee, I don't know.
Yeah, that won't fly very much in England because like the Albanians are pretty pasty, and I don't want to get colonized by those guys either.
I've heard that a lot in South Africa. I wonder if that's where it's coming from. That's almost always right here. Oh, the Europeans. So maybe it is. Who knows?
I do think there's probably especially galvanized by online kind of.
Well, Europeans are the colonizers, so it paints you with that.
But I think among the right, having been browbeaten as colonizers for so long, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like an online movement that's saying kind of like European solidarity. I mean, I still think it's a bit of an Americanism a little bit because they see Europe as sort of one big conglomerate. There are many differences between European cultures, but then again, our enemies see us as one big collective, so I'm not surprised when they start organizing along the European lines.
Indeed. Let's grab some more.
More rants. And by the way, don't forget my Rumble show, Ask Dr. Drew. Check it out there. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 2 o'clock Pacific time. Thank you, guys.
Right on. 250 years of USA says, hey, Tim and crew, our story and American history podcast just completed its first week, and we covered 1776 through 1781. Follow along as we cover all 250 years at 250 Years of USA on X. Very cool. Right on. Poppins.
We need to reteach American history. Oh, my God.
Indeed. Poppins Patches says, took my 5-year-old to her first movie today off your Superman recommendation. She loved it. Thank you. Shout out to my popinspatches.com for the best patches and tactical tricorn hats in the USA.
We're not going to get into Superman, are we?
I had somebody message me, a friend of mine, saying he didn't like it. I liked it. Cosmic Book News wrote up a review showing, like, I think Nerdrotic said 6 out of 10, and they were like, Tim Pool liked it. I liked it. I thought it was great. There's some bad points to it, but overall, I thought it really turned around in the back half of the movie. And Mr. Terrific was excellent. It was so awesome. Actor could have been a little bit better. The depiction of the character could have been a little bit better, but it was just very cool, and he was a great character, and I loved the fight scene.
I remain intensely skeptical because of the tone of James Gunn.
I'm hearing he was misquoted. I've known James for a long time.
No, I don't necessarily mean the politics of it.
The immigration thing.
Yeah.
Even Brett from Pop Culture Crisis was saying they asked him about it and then took the quotes and tried to inject it.
That doesn't sound like the guy I know.
But even then, I don't think Guardians of the Galaxy tone maps well onto Superman. I think I don't want to Marvelify DC as a major DC fan. It just,
I don't disagree with you, and he did.
right, okay.
Like in the end of the film, this is not a spoiler. It's more of a post-credit scene. Supergirl is there, and it's one big joke.
right.
Yeah. So they're introducing. I don't know the actress's name who's playing Supergirl.
She was in House of Dragon, wasn't she?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's in that Netflix show. What you call it? Sirens, I think.
Oh.
And
She looks like horror, so that's fine. Like I don't know what she's like as an
but
actress. But
the end credit scene is basically it might be a spoiler, probably not because it's not part of the movie in any way.
she's got a movie coming out, so
Right. Once the movie ends, there's like the very last scene is she walks in, the Superbots go, your cousin is here. And then Kara walks in and she like whistles, and then Crypto jumps on her. And then she's like, he's slamming her into the ground, and it's shattering the ground. And then Superman says she likes to go party on planets with red suns where she can get drunk. And that's like the end of it. So
yeah, thanks. I hate it. I really hate that, actually.
Yeah, DC like was in my opinion more serious than Marvel the whole time.
Yeah.
But I did think that the original Snyder films were a little too broody.
I think the Snyder trilogy is, other than some of the casting in Justice League, Ezra Miller, yikes.
Yeah,
Amber
seriously,
Heard,
come
yikes.
on.
But those films are phenomenal. Love them. I think Man of Steel is a near perfect.
I do think Man of Steel is amazing.
Man of Steel's
I
great.
did not like when Superman killed Zod though.
Second Amendment.
What do you mean?
Well, what other option did he have? He could not have flown him up. There was no
Phantom
Phantom
Zone.
Zone. There was no Phantom Zone.
That's poor writing.
No.
Superman is supposed to put him in the Phantom
No,
Zone.
I don't disagree. But in the internal logic of the movie, it was.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And I think it should have been written as such. So So spoiler alert. Spoiler for Superman. I know it's just come out. Spoiler warning. I'm going to say it again. Minimal spoiler. There's a scene in the new Superman where Superman is trying to resist killing, and the other heroes are like, "Oh, please," and they kill. So the Superman character in this movie is like, "We don't do that," and then there are other characters that are like, "I do," and the characters that do it are okay. Like, I don't want to spoil too much, but the characters who kill, it's comic accurate.
Right.
It's yeah. So
Is it Guy?
well, do you want me to just?
Well, hang on. That's not necessarily comic accurate because the Green Lantern rings didn't have lethal force enabled until the Sinestro Corps War. So if they've got him killing, that's not technically.
I didn't say
true.
anything.
Okay. All right.
I could just say it.
Go on.
Hawkgirl.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a Themyscirian warrior. She's like
Thanagarian.
Thanagarian. Sorry,
the one.
Themyscira is
Yeah.
Wonder Woman. Sorry, Thanagarian. I said that wrong yesterday, but it's a good scene, and I like it because there's like bad guys who are like, you won't do it. You're heroes, and she's not. No. So I enjoyed it, but there's other scenes. I'm not referring to that scene.
Yeah.
There's some other scenes too.
I'm just concerned about the general direction of DC because he's announced all these projects, and other than Swamp Thing, I'm excited for literally none of them. There's going to be 2 different Batman, and the Pattinson Batman sucked on toast.
The what? I agree. It was miserable.
Appalling
And
movie.
everyone's like, it was so good. I was like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, thank you, Catwoman, for lecturing me my white male privilege.
Yeah, seriously.
While you go back to your lesbian polycule. exactly what I want. While your dad lectures me on how communism was great.
But I like Peacemaker. I think Peacemaker's great.
I didn't watch it. It looked again like a big goofy.
It is. Is that James Gunn too?
Yeah.
I like it. And Peacemaker cameos in the Superman movie. I don't know. I like it. I like it.
So,
Yeah.
so tired. I miss when Zack Snyder was making Watchmen.
To be fair, if they toned down the goofiness a little bit, if they could stand to increase the serious factor while keeping the vibrant colors and a little bit of the levity, because even DC had levity at times. Like we were joking about that scene in the Justice League cartoon where Lex Luthor takes over Flash's body, and he's like, "Well, at least I can figure out Flash's secret identity." Takes the mask off and goes, "I have no idea who this is." It was great. So there can be humor in it, but it is more serious.
Character dependent, definitely.
Yeah, they went a little too hokey, but I still enjoyed it. I thought it was actually very good, and I think James Gunn is gonna rescue DC. Yeah, I know you don't like it, but understand DC was not doing well. These movies were not doing well.
No, actually, no. Batman v Superman and Man of Steel did very well box office wise. The critics
Man of Steel
hated
did.
it. Batman v Superman did.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Right. Man of Steel and Batman Superman.
Yeah.
And then it started to.
Yeah. That's because
The Flash.
Yeah, but that's because Warner Brothers meddled it from an executive level. Like as moment they
Ezra
took
Miller?
the moment they took it away from what the fans actually wanted, especially after Justice League, it just deteriorated into nonsense. And I'm thinking this isn't probably going to be what the fans want again.
With James, look for echoes of old films, old westerns, spaghetti westerns. He's a film fanatic.
I actually do think. What's his brother's name? Sean Gunn.
Yeah,
I
sounds like an insufferable knob.
Sure, but he has a quick cameo as Maxwell Lord.
I know, total miscasting.
I disagree.
No, Maxwell Lord is not like that in the comics.
I know, but I liked the depiction they made.
He is slick and suave and
That's what they have in the movie.
Okay.
But I agree, it's not like he gave his brother a role. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But the scene he's in is the only time they actually say anything political, but it's neutral political, and it is funny. I think everybody would laugh. Yeah. It's not targeting any. I mean, I don't want to. I don't know. I'm not going to spoil.
I know you hated The Flash, by the way. You do know this guy is directing the next Batman movie.
I didn't hate The Flash. It's just so horribly miscast.
Yeah.
And the movie was, I give it a D plus C minus.
Pretty bad.
I won't watch it again, but I was not walking out of the theater. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Yeah. I'm going to walk out of the theater right now. But the only reason I didn't was because I was like, I need to see the movie to comment on it. But there was another. I will walk out of a movie. I almost walked out of Superman, legit. When the interdimensional monkeys were sending tweets, I'm not kidding, and not a joke. And I will spoil that because I don't care. I was like, I'm gonna get up and go. But almost right after, Mr. Terrific comes in, and I'm like, I gotta watch Mr. Terrific, and then it completely redeemed itself. And I was like, okay, you brought me back. All right. I love the Mr. Terrific character. I love the superheroes that are people who earn their power. I don't like Superman. He's okay. He's fine. I think his character is good, but that's why Iron Man, Batman, Doctor Strange, he studies and learns how to use magic. Mr. Terrific invents things just like Batman and Iron Man does. I love characters that are like that. That they show that humans can have this tremendous power through hard work. And that's why Lex Luthor's a great character as well, but he's evil about it, you know? Anyway, let's grab some more super chats. We only got a few more minutes. Taylor Lorenz's ex says, Dr. Drew, you live... Oh, I'm not reading that.
You live is an old greeting from Loveline in the latter days of the show.
And then there's a statement that is inappropriate, which I won't read. Love OG Loveline. I took one J&J COVID jab. How screwed am I?
That one doesn't seem to have the long-term problems. I took that one too.
But the statement after you live was, you might know what it is. It's probably a joke from like you and Adam, but it's a reference to an orifice I'm not going to read. All right.
That's the Mike Catherwood era. That's after him, Adam.
Waltrip says, there are victims even under oath accusing people who are making laws that govern you, vote on them, and enforce the laws that are governing you. That is why it's important. So, yeah. All right. What do we got here? TechFall says, according to Bondi, the number of victims has increased from 200 to thousands, and the number of perpetrators has dropped to 1. If it was all Epstein, then why is she still convicted? According to the memo that was released, Maxwell was still trafficking to Epstein. So their story now is that Maxwell was supplying girls to Jeffrey Epstein, and then it's like, oh wow, who flew him on the plane? No pilots. Okay, you're right. Maybe no pilots. Maybe it was a boat. Who drove the boat? Probably had more than one person on a plane or a boat.
Yep.
Somebody was transporting these kids.
Yep.
Yeah. Jonathan Westcott says, do you think the reason for Bongino and Kash being insistent of Epstein killing himself could be that they found out he was in witness protection? Some people believe that.
That's
I don't
the
know.
theory.
Yeah, they shuffled Epstein out of the prison, and that's why the reason they're saying he killed himself is because he didn't actually die at all, and the video footage would show him being shuffled out. I don't know. I believe it, though. Maybe. Who knows? All right. K.S. Mann says Charlemagne was a literal demon. He denied and actually killed one of his best friends because he suggested an exorcism. Look it up. Well, all right. All right. Let's see.
So let me get
Monotony.
this right. Warlords were not great guys? Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Monotony says, Tim, would you please consider sharing my GSG for my wife? She is undergoing a spinal fusion surgery in August. I don't know how we are going to make ends meet as a dual income household. It's give, send, go / what does it say? Resi piece, RESEE piece. We have very small font on the screen, unfortunately, but hopefully that's it. Andrew Ho says the sacked USAID staff have now admitted they ran color revolutions to topple foreign leaders and are encouraging and having it turned inward on the U.S. to topple Trump. Indeed, they have given interviews about it, and I think Trump should charge them with seditious conspiracy and have law enforcement track them down and arrest them.
Do you follow Mike Benz?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had him on the show several times.
Yeah. I mean, he's got that all worked out.
Yep.
We spent years concocting incredibly elaborate theories about wokeness. Was it the Frankfurt School? Was it liberalism? Was it communism? Turns out it was just the U.S. government.
Yeah. All right, my friends, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. I hope you guys have a great weekend. We got clips coming up throughout the weekend, of course, but we'll go around with you're starting with Connie. You want to shout anything out?
Yes, you can catch my show, Tomlinson Talks, now on YouTube, available for everyone. The YouTube channel is just my name. I'm not particularly creative. Most of my writing is on Courage Media, and then you can follow me on X at @con_Tomlinson. Thank you for having me back, Tim.
Absolutely. Anytime.
So my website is freespeechtoday.com. It's where you can get my new book, Can I Say That? Why Free Speech Matters and How to Use It Fearlessly. It's a book, as the name implies, you learn about the psychology of why free speech is good for mental health, and then also practical tips for speaking up, as well as for listening even when it's hard to do. And my agent dropped me because of this book, and my big publisher didn't want to do this book. They asked me if I would do some other book, any book. But I said, no, I really need to do this book. So please help support the book. And you can go to freespeechtoday.com and Skyhorse Publishing. Thanks for picking it up.
A couple TV shows, Hollywood Demons, check that out. That's streaming on Max, and then also a show called Health Uncensored on Lifetime. And Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 2 o'clock Pacific time, we do a show on Rumble, Ask Dr. Drew. It's also on YouTube at drdrew.tv.
You can follow me on X at RealTateBrown and Instagram at RealTateBrown. When I hit 1,000 followers on X, I will share some stories from my time in Africa. Some pretty crazy stories, so get ready.
Right on. Maybe we should just do a show where we get you really drunk.
Yeah.
And then you tell the stories, but you're just blasted.
Yeah, that would be
Just in click language.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everybody. We're back, of course, on Monday. Clips throughout the weekend. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.
Yeah.